NSFW. What's the worst thing you have witnessed on a Bachelorette party? Don't worry. Still plenty of time to fuck up at the wedding or reception. Me neither. He was not what we ordered and disgusting too. His dick looked like he contracted an STD. I think they call it STIs now. We were appalled. Everyone wanted him to leave. Edit. A word. Typical gamer guy. Just pretending to know a game for attention from the opposite sex. I feel like you probably need to take a poll of who's down to suck you off before you dip your dick in chocolate. I just imagine the poor guy having to clean Hershey's syrup off his dick. He brought the pitching machine to the wedding. At the bachelor party we had a stripper nicknamed the pitching machine that would shoot ping pong balls out of her hoo-ha. The best man really hit it off with her, unbeknownst to everyone else at the time. The day of the wedding he showed up with the pitching machine. I'm thinking the groom had a fetish. Lol. $100 is hardly motivating. Especially for something like that if you're not into it. I watched my boss, covered in lube, being ridden around the club like a horse, by a stripper with a belt around his neck acting as the reins. Safe to say our office dynamic has altered somewhat. I went to a bachelor party not more than a month ago. Same story minus lube. Before that though, they beat his ass with a belt. The more dollars you're through, the harder they hit. I spent a lot of dollars and it was glorious. At the bachelor party I went to, the stripper was beating the groom's ass with a belt, but she was doing it so hard we had to pay her to stop. At the wedding he could barely walk. Ass was black and blue. So he fired you out of embarrassment. Or you quit. Out of embarrassment? Stripper arrives and is older than all of us. We tried to convince her to play Doom. She would not. This is just gold. Bride to be blowing a male stripper while everyone in her party were cheering her on, including her future mother-in-law. Louder cheers when he blew his load in her mouth. It's the future mother-in-law that made it super WTF. What the fuck is wrong with people? Why does everyone have to cheat on their wedding night? Finally it's my time to shine. This one is a little different from other stories here, but it may be one of the worst things that could happen to anybody at a bachelor party, so just bear with me. The day before my brother got married we decided to have a really small bachelor party with just a few guys and go skydiving. We knew of a small place that had a small hangar outside of a small city and decided that this would be the place since we could do it for a small price. It was me, my brother, my sister, and another friend that was coming from upstate, and we had an appointment at 5 p.m. for our jump. Long story short, the other friend left hours ahead of time to make sure he would arrive on time, but had major car problems and then got stuck in traffic, making him about an hour late instead. We were communicating during all of this and trying to decide whether we should wait or just go ahead and jump without him. Finally, we decided to ask the staff if there were any groups after us that we could trade appointments with so we could wait for our friend. Well, as fate would have it, there was a group of exactly for just after us, and for in our group, remember. So after the other party agreed to swap, they just switched us times and we had the later appointment. They were excited to be able to go sooner than they thought. My brother and I had gotten there early and we were having a great time watching the planes go up and the jumpers come down. They would go up 4 at a time, 2 jumpers and 2 instructors jumping in tandem, and would land right in front of the hangar. It was fascinating for me to see how they would come in so fast. Then just at the last minute they would pull up and land like a bird or a parachuter. Anyway, the first 2 of the group we swapped came in just fine, and my brother and I went out to watch the other 2 jump before it was our turn to strap into the harnesses. Fast forward, we saw them jump. We saw one of them deploy their chutes, but the other fell way further. I remember thinking, wow, I hope I get an instructor that lets me fall that far. That looks way more fun. Eventually their chute deployed, but as soon as it did they started going into an uncontrolled spin. They were coming in hot and I was waiting for them to pull up like all the others had. But they never did. I heard a scream. They slammed into the ground, and a cloud of dust shot up about 6 feet into the air. They were out in the weeds nowhere close to the landing pad. The weird thing is that there were no staff outside watching, and my brother, my dad, who was there to watch us jump, and I were the only ones to see them hit. I ran and told the staff what happened, and then we ran out into the weeds to find them. They were broken, both unconscious, face down in the dirt. They had cuts and gashes, some big enough that I could see bone. But there wasn't a lot of blood anywhere. I assume because their hearts stopped so quickly. We wanted to start CPR, but their bodies were so tangled in the harnesses that we had to get the seatbelt cutters from their packs and start cutting the straps apart so we could roll them over. One of the weirdest parts of the experience was cutting the straps and noticing that there was poop splattered across the harnesses. We performed CPR on the jumper and the instructor until ambulances arrived, but we learned later that both were confirmed dead at the hospital. This was the group that we had swapped. The 4 in that group were a mother and her 3 daughters. The mother died. The father had bought them the tickets as a Christmas present a few months earlier. I'm sorry that I've ruined your day like this. Needless to say, we didn't end up jumping that day. Anyway, the wedding the next morning was nice. We should probably just hire some strippers next time. TLDR. Watched people slam into the ground at 100 miles per hour and spent my first bachelor party cutting harnesses off dead bodies. Also, here's the news article for anyone that doesn't believe me. Sltrib webpage. The groom's best friend, 24 years old, died a horrific death in a house fire weeks before the wedding. We were all crushed. How could the wedding proceed without Richie? He was supposed to be the best man. So we gathered at a friend's house where we made sausages and desserts for the wedding, and then retreated to a cabin in the woods on the property. About 15 of us spent hours drinking beer, smoking weed, and alternately crying and laughing about Richie. It was like his unofficial wake. I know this all sounds so sad, and it was, but it was necessary. I think we all attended the wedding with a lot of weight lifted from our shoulders after spending the night before celebrating the missing guest. It was a hard night, and I still respect the groom for making his bachelor party about the one person who couldn't attend. Not really on par with worst things like I've read in the comments thus far, but was still pretty funny in retrospect. Our group arrived in Vegas for some pre-scheduled debauchery and drinking at a strip club. The groom's best man decides to get a dance in the champagne room. He comes back and we head out to gamble and drink some more before retiring to the hotel room. Next morning, while recovering from our collective hangovers, the best man's right eye was as red and puffy like a souffle. He told us the stripper used his face as washboard during his time with her. The doctor told him he had gotten crabs in his eyebrow somehow and they made their way down to his eye. Needless to say, he didn't play the part of best man. We still haven't allowed him to live that down. Late to party, but this was insane. Groom had bachelor party in the back of a bar. Private room. Big room, like 50 dudes there, including his father. Parents were married. Everyone is drinking heavily. 5 strippers come in. They are basically walking around with cans of whipped cream and you pay money to lick it off of their body. Most of the guys are paying $10 and get to lick one nipple or something. The dude's father, probably in 50s, has one of the girls up on a table. She sprayed whipped cream on her crotch. She's completely naked, and he's kneeling on the floor eating her out, and this continued for minutes. Some guys were laughing. I was in shock. Total fucking shock. My buddy was at a party where they got the groom pass out drunk and got him on a plane to Kansas. This was the 70s, so no airport security. The groom came to 3 states from home with no wallet. The stripper was pregnant. Not oh she's got a little baby bump pregnant. She was flat out oh god I hope she doesn't deliver during this dance pregnant. There were a few guys that were really into it too. Which is whatever. Everyone has their kinks. I was second choice for the best man. Which I didn't mind. Less work for me. So I wandered over to the actual best man, who I was friends with, and struck up a conversation. Me. Hey. This beer is great. And you did a great job with the food and liquor too. Him. Thanks man. Me. Sue. Did you notice the stripper is like 11 months pregnant? Him. Shut up. Turns out that he was trying to cut some expenses and found a friend. That knew a friend. That knew a friend. That knew of this girl that stripped really cheap. After she was done dancing, including the one-on-one dance with the groom, she started propositioning guys. Her and some of the guys would disappear randomly. I don't know exactly what happened and I never asked because I really didn't want to know. I'd say my best friend's husband's bachelor party. We went to Vegas and got home from the club around 4 AM. We rode the elevator up with a hooker. Groom went to bed and 6 of the groomsmen took turns banging the hooker. I went to bed in another room and didn't participate in the shenanigans. Woke up at 8 AM to used condoms everywhere and a video of them all taking turns. Another groomsman walked in at 9 AM saying he won $800 on craps and needed to sleep because he'd done a ton of coke earlier and should probably get some sleep. One of the GFs of the groomsmen found out and told the others' wives. Wedding had great cake though. That guy with the coke and craps winnings. You should stay with him next time. Edit highest comment. My children must never know of their father this way. This was my brother's bachelor party. There was a group of about 16 of us who got a private room in a local, shitty, strip club. A guy who I'll call Ed showed up, but was not invited. He was a childhood friend of my brother, but as an adult Ed had some issues, like 5 kids from 4 different mothers, and general poor decision making. Anyway, within the first hour, 2 strippers start giving us a show. They are seemingly getting really into it and start 69ing each other vigorously. Ed proceeds to kneel behind the woman on top in the 69 and licks her ass. She screams to the giant bouncer they had stationed in the private room with us, "Jimmy, this guy just licked my asshole." Jimmy responds, "Hey, no asshole licking," and violently drags him out. Thin. I'm laying down in my ambulance, trying to relax after having 5 calls, and this has made my night. Thank you, kind stranger. Similar story from a few months ago. Buddy is dating a cam girl and she goes wild at strip clubs. Anyway, she licked a stripper's asshole and a bouncer appears out of thin air to say, "Mom, please don't lick the performer's asshole." Then he melted away back into the shadows. Friend's bachelorette party heads to a grotty strip club, where a particularly sweaty and greased up male stripper takes a drink from the hands of one of the party, puts it on the stage and proceeds to do push-ups, dipping his dick into the drink. He'd also just put shaving cream all over himself for some reason. So there's big blobs of that and a film of grease all floating in this girl's rum and coke that this bloke has been dipping his knob in and out of. She takes it and downs it in one, and licks around the inside of the glass. Nearly threw up. Edit. I know you would expect it to be whipped cream he was rubbing on himself, but unfortunately it was definitely shaving cream. I distinctly saw him bring out a can of Gillette and spray it all over his chest and crotch. The best man got piss drunk at breakfast and ate an entire banana without peeling it, and I've questioned if there is a God ever since. Our good friend came over to our house to party and play beer after his wedding ceremony. He got hammered drunk, pulled a frozen corn dog out of the freezer, and ate the whole thing without thawing it out. Edit. Beer pong. Went to Montreal and to St. Catherine Street. Lots of strip joints. Groom and the best man, his younger brother, weren't the most experienced in strip clubs. They get a private dance with 2 dancers and are gone for a long time. I'm worrying they lost track of time. Meanwhile the other guys are doing their thing in the club. I'm outside having a smoke and I see the 2 of them, shirt collars stretched out, hair disheveled, and it looks like they're covered in lipstick. It was blood. They got in a dispute over how much they owed the girls. Claimed they were misquoted. Bouncers show up and just start beating on them. Best man had a boot print on this bag, busted face, and he lost his 2 front teeth. Groom similarly beat up, swollen eye, lip, etc. We spend night in a where best man gets emergency root canal. We called cops and to their credit they investigated. Took the bouncer's shoes as evidence. They were covered in blood. He was eventually prosecuted. Local authorities paid for the guys to fly back a couple times to testify. It didn't ruin the trip. We stayed away from the strip joints the rest of the weekend and the groom won some money at the casino. It makes for a good story. The beating at Supersex. The wedding was a few months later so everyone had time to heal. However, the best man sneezed a couple days before the wedding and his front teeth flew out of his mouth. Here's a new story on it. They didn't get much, if anything, from the club. Canada doesn't do civil damages like the US to Americans sue Montreal strip club for $860,000 Toronto Sun webpage. Hahaha. Of course it was the Supersex. Trashiest place in Montreal after the Amazons. Les Amazons was my first time at a strip club. My northern Quebecois upstairs neighbors found out I'd never been to a strip club. I'm a chick, and decided to bring me there. They paid for a private dance and we basically went in there and the stripper told me how she didn't do drugs like the other girls so had a shitload of money saved. We went it and pretended it was the best time ever. No one believed us. And then I had to drive them home because everyone was so drunk. Supersex story time. Some friends of mine brought me there for my 18th birthday and paid me a lap dance. The stripper spent the whole time talking about her kids and how she has a babysitter right now and really needs to pick him up. It was 1 in the morning. Similar. My very attractive stripper told me a lot about her handicapped brother. Meanwhile in another room my friend was upside down and half his balls reached through his pants. It always makes me feel so uncomfortable reading about people losing teeth. They never get even close to how they were before. Well, at least unlike me they got a partially funner story to tell. Edit. Fixed some wrong spelling. At a bachelorette party where the stripper dipped his dick in chocolate and went around to each woman expecting someone to give it a taste. Everyone refused. Was his stage name Willy Wonka? Edit. Now with music. NSFW. What's the worst thing you have witnessed on a bachelorette party? AskReddit webpage. That's not how the dancing videos go. You ruined the image for me. So, I have the exact opposite story. Friend of mine has a bachelor party in Vegas about 10ish years ago. In high school, he was a football stud, then went to college and became an engineer. Gets married soon after college. So half his friends are his high school football crowd, and the other half are, well, the cool nerds he met in college. Guy A is from the football crowd. I think he was literally a used car salesman. Basically a big kinda fat kinda muscled guy with intricate facial hair, your basic Vegas douchebag. He was throwing around an insane amount of money, and when we got to a strip club he was desperate to hook up with a stripper, i.e., probably expecting to pay for it. Guy B is from the college crowd. Skinny chemist, cool guy, but looked like he was 12. Guy B is chatting with a gorgeous stripper while she gives him a lap dance. This was one of the better Vegas strip clubs, so she really was gorgeous if you're into strippers. Petite, super fit blonde with nice fake tits and a couple of tats. Guy A tries to cut him by literally sticking his head into the middle of lap dance and yelling over the music. I bet he won't shut up about his World of Warcraft character. Stripper responds with OMG I love World of Warcraft and immediately launches into a 20-minute discussion of the game with Guy B. Later, she gives him her number. The next day, he disappears for several hours and, yup, went out and hooked up with the stripper. Guy A, meanwhile, continued to blow money at a jaw-dropping pace and disappeared abruptly after losing like $3 grand playing blackjack. Turns out he just drove home all pissed off. But he wasn't answering phone calls for like 2 days. We were kinda worried he was in the hospital or something. Anyway, later we were teasing Guy B about hooking up with a stripper based on his World of Warcraft prowess, of all things, and he sheepishly admits, yeah, I've never played that game. Everything I know is from other people telling me about it. I just bluffed my way through that entire conversation. At the same time something like that would kill the vibe. I'm not a stripper and I've never put my dick on chocolate, but if you're going to get away with raunchy moves you really just need to commit. I'm not a stripper but I have dipped my dick in chocolate before. Yeah, you definitely have to commit fully. You might be asked never to return to the Westbury Applebee's, but taking a poll completely ruins the vibe. I'm conflicted. On the one hand, I'm not gay. On the other, free chocolate. I was in Vegas for a bachelor party about a month ago. We pulled up to a card table on Saturday night and found another group of guys who were there for a bachelor party, so we got to talking. We asked which one of them was the bachelor and they kinda laughed then said, well, he got arrested earlier today. Apparently, he got arrested for having some fun powder at a day party and tried to fight security. They said they couldn't see him until Monday after he saw a judge, so they planned to continue with the party until they could see him. Ultimately, the dealer was this Russian woman with a thick ass accent was listening and said, wait, he got arrested for cocaine? I thought this was Vegas. That's bullshit. I don't know what ended up happening with him. But that's Zuluaks. Our Vegas is super against cocaine. I've never seen so many people arrested for possession than I have on my many trips to Vegas. Right? What do people think the cops in Vegas do? Arrest fucking tourists. Constantly. People can lose all common sense when going to one of these places. First time I went to Canada to drink at 19. I kind of forgot it was a real place and not just there for my amusement. All these flashing lights, you have all this money that for once you saved up specifically to spend it all. One of my buddies went over with a bunch of his friends from the ritzy expensive school his parents sent him to, and myself. Everyone got in except for him, so I told him fuck it, we'll just go to some shitty hole in the wall bar and get trashed. We spent so much money. It was the first real bar he had ever been allowed in. We left and proceeded to leave a trail of destruction down the street, ripping off street signs to bring back over the border with us. Yeah, I know. I ended up spending the weekend in Canadian jail, which really wasn't that bad. You wake up in jail the next morning and just wonder how you could have been so fucking stupid. But you go to a tourist place like that and it's just not in your head that this is a place with people living there, laws and all that. You just drunkenly think it's all there for your dumb ass to do whatever you want. This was the aftermath of my boss' best friend's bachelor party. They decided he'd sleep at our house. I'm a nanny and live with him and his kids, so that he wouldn't see his future wife before the wedding, which was the next day, the night of the bachelor party. They informed me that groom's asshole frat bro Bill is sleeping in the house too. Whatever, it's not my house, so not my rules. Anyway, I hear them being loud as fuck when they got home and go upstairs to tell them to shut up because there are 3 kids sleeping and it's 3 AM. Bill and groom won't stop bitching at each other. My boss tells me it's been like this all night, and when I ask why, he explains that Bill bought the groom a back pitch hooker and had her show up to the party because he thought groom deserved it. Groom freaked out, told him off, and it completely ruined the night. We managed to get them to shut up. Groom goes to sleep in the guest room, Bill on the downstairs couch, and I go back to bed. Half hour later someone opens my bedroom door, which I'll leave unlocked if the kids need something in the night. It's Bill and his hooker. When I ask him what the fuck he thinks he's doing, he says he didn't realize that it was my room and then something like I'm not going to waste my $700 and I tell him to get the fuck out. I was so creeped out I locked my room and went and slept upstairs in one of the kids' rooms. It makes me sad the Bill bought the groom a hooker. How can someone try to do that to their sister? When I left a wedding reception to go to another event, I asked my friends to watch out for my younger brother. My friends were drunk and they dared my brother to go knock on some limo's window that drove by. He did. Then he ran away. Then a bunch of girls opened the door and told him to come back. So he did. Then the limo drove off with my brother in it. It was a bachelorette party. My friends freaked out because they were supposed to watch my brother and he just hopped in some stranger's car that drove away. The girls in the car got my brother to eat a lifesaver off the bachelorette's nipple. Then they showed him a picture of the huge guy she was marrying the next day. He was scared for a week some guy was going to find him and beat him up. And it was at that time the young man realized a lifesaver may actually be what causes the end of his life. I couldn't stop laughing at my friends freaked out because they were supposed to watch my brother and he just hopped in some stranger's car that drove away. It is really funny when you look back at it. They were downtown in the city. It is kind of a bar and restaurant district. So, when I say he hopped in some stranger's limo and it drove away, I quite literally mean it. My little brother was off on the town with a bachelorette party riding in a limo. I can only imagine my friends about shit themselves when it left with him in it. I am just happy they brought him back after they were done. The story about what happened when he got in the limo is just as funny as it leaving with him in it. My friend died on his bachelor weekend. He fell out the cab at the end of the night and hit his head on the sidewalk. Cops put him in a drunk cell overnight. Turned out he had fractured his skull. They let him out in the morning, but he went into a coma and died a week later. Wedding was supposed to be 3 weeks later. We ended up having his funeral then. I am completely broken up by it still. Edit. Overwhelmed by the kind messages from so many folks, and grateful for the smart discussion about when to seek medical help. This started as a story about life at its worst. It ended as one about Reddit at its best. Thanks friends. Sir. Please check for battle signs. CSF. Raccoon eyes or deformities on your friends after they hit their heads. Each of these are clear signs, sometimes not immediately visible, of skull fracture, and skull fractures will almost always be fatal eventually. Source: Ems. We see some shit. Have strippers come over. They are not strippers but escorts. Married dude fucks escort as the other girl is getting slapped by ping pong paddles in the ass upstairs in a good fight. Next day I have to sit in car and drive home with guilt-stricken married guy. I'd like to know what % of people who cheat on bachelor night who don't cheat during the marriage. IDK the stats, but I tell ya Pornhub has some fantastic videos that start off that way. Friend of mine got a free pass on his stag do to bang whoever he liked as long as he wore a condom 4 days in Berlin, hammered as fuck, and he didn't use it. Fair play to him. I love how people do crazy shit like this the day before they're to be wed instead of just having a wild party like that when they're young and single. I know, right? It's like all rules are out the window. It's such a weird tradition. Vast majority of bachelor parties aren't that crazy at all. Just bros doing bro things from my experience. Ski weekend with drinking games and a lot of FIFA was my latest experience. It's a trope. Slapped by ping pong paddles in the ass, or on the ass. Seems like very different scenarios. I was at one where the groom was getting a little too frisky with the dancer. His brother shook up a cold beer and sprayed it on the two of them. Priceless. I got invited to a bachelor party that took place in the clubhouse of my friend's apartment complex. Plan was to have drinks and strippers early and then hit the clubs later. The girls show up and introduce themselves with their best fake stripper names. They were escorted by their manager Terry, who no joke looked like Dave Chappelle's impersonation of Rick James. Immediately weird shit starts happening. Like one girl sticking a lollipop up her coos and then sticking it in people's mouths. Anyway, within the first 5 minutes we figured out we had hired prostitutes instead of strippers. The whole time Terry is walking around and encouraging us to have a good time with one specific rule. Don't come on the bitches. Shit is getting intense and the girls are starting to just full on start blowing dudes when we heard a girl scream and then go running to Terry. One of our friends who was, less experienced with girls had just basted this girl's face with cum without warning. She looked like she'd been dipped in it. It was everywhere. Just like that, the music stops. Lights go up and Terry exclaims, "Party's over 'cause one of y'all went and came on peaches." To this day we still use that phrase every time we get together, and it's a point of pride to see who can work it into conversation first. My buddy's bachelor party was set to be pretty tame. No strip clubs or casinos or anything like that. He just wanted to get these massive burgers from the local burger joint walking distance from his condo and play Mario Kart 64. So after we had all stuffed our faces from these ridiculous Mondo burgers, we sat down, divvied up the teams, and each person would drain 1 beer per lap, then exchange controllers. Every single person ended up puking immediately. Once the toilet, sink, and kitchen sink were full, people were throwing up all over the place, running around looking for the least damaging spot to spew. It was obscene. I imagine this much like a scene from a battlefield. Full-grown men are crying, weeping and screaming. Buddies dodging each other's projectile vomits like hails of bullets as they stumble over fallen body after body in search of refuge. Men in fetal positions clinging to controllers like medical gauze over gaping wounds. We play Don't Drink and Drive. Every racer has a drink that must be consumed before the end of the race. They cannot drink and drive at the same time, however, and must park to drink. Story time. This was about 10 years ago. I was working at a strip club when a bachelor group of about 10 came in, including the groom's best friend since high school, aka the best man. So they are doing the typical bachelor party at a strip club thing, but are very polite and decent dudes, mostly just drinking and enjoying the risque atmosphere and catching up. Strip club was near the airport. Pretty sure most of them had flown into town from around the country. All of them were telling us how the bride had implicitly stated no strip clubs when talking to the best man. The groom and his best man were telling a story to me and another girl hanging out with the group about how they did a talent show in high school together. Had this whole dance routine choreographed to It Takes Two by Rob Bass and DJ Z-Rock. They were so excited to relive it. Obvious that they hadn't been able to tell this tale to fresh ears in a while. Their faces were all lit up like kids on Christmas, and they kept jumping up and showing us parts of the dance, explaining how it was awesome because they both remembered the whole routine after all this time, and they even ended with them both doing a jazz split at the same time. So eventually they get the idea that they want to perform it on the main stage together. They excitedly ask us if we thought they could get up there and do it. Now, I thought it would be wild to see. So I go ask the manager, who promptly says number insurance and liability issues. Fair enough. I give the news to the dudes, who have been talking with the rest of their group, and now everyone is very on board with this performance revival plan. So when they hear the bad news, they start offering cash. As we all know, money talks, and it was a particularly slow evening. Not many patrons to bear witness. So, I go back to the manager and explain they are willing to pay. Fine, she says. $200 to rent the stage for the one song, and they have to tip the DJ to play it. $200 is pretty steep for a 5-minute song, but you know, alcohol and dudes reminiscing. The guys are happy to pay. Now, this is midsummer and all the dudes are in cargo shorts and those Tommy Bahama leather sandals. The club wasn't big on dress code aside from no hats. So these two guys get all ready to take the stage, and the DJ puts the song on. These two killed it. We all sat together watching in complete, genuine delight. I was laughing and clapping and cheering them on. We all were. It was just like they had so exuberantly relived. You could tell they were just having the time of their lives up there. And with the final moments of the song, came that jazz split. The jazz split that only the groom decided to go ahead with. I'm assuming the best man, they were all mid-30s, had second thoughts on his body's ability to not wrench itself in pain. We all watched and all that immediately turned to horror as the groom's face bounced off the stage like a basketball. My hands clapped over my mouth and everyone just froze for a second in disbelief. Then we all rushed the stage. The dude slipped on his sandal on the come down and knocked out his 2 front teeth. Had to be rushed to the ER. He was getting married the next day. I still wonder to this day whatever happened to him and his group, and if they were able to explain themselves out of that one. Still, what a performance. Honestly, this is the best one yet. No cheating, no nasty body fluid shooting everywhere. They were just having fun. Till that last move. I wonder what he told his bride-to-be about his teeth. At my bachelor party, I walked into a bar at the head of about 20 people, and ordered some drinks. As I was waiting, I noticed a guy antagonizing a table full of people who were trying to ignore him. A bouncer tried to get him to leave and he lifted his shirt, revealing a holster. Someone, maybe me, yelled gun and people started tackling the guy and punching the shit out of him. He was able to get his weapon out and fire. Only his weapon was a 20 ounces can of Bear deterrent pepper spray. He emptied the can into the air and everyone in the room started gasping and crying and screaming. Police rolled up just as this guy was being dragged to his feet, and throngs of screaming, crying people are pouring out of the bar. Just at this time, my dad and father-in-law arrived to see how the party was going. The first thing they saw, after the utter mayhem, was my younger brother choking out the words "We didn't do it. Dad, I was deeding for my friend's bachelor party. I jammed 4 drunk Marines into a 2013 Yaris, and we hit the road." Eventually we ended up at a CD strip club. Things are going okay. Drinks were surprisingly affordable, and we were the only people in the joint. Eventually a different dancer stumbles through the door and is aggressively trying to get someone to buy a dance from her. Nobody is interested as she was definitely not on the A squad. She talks my buddy and his younger brother into seeing a trick and proceeds to without warning squirt a bottle of water up her vagina, and then spray it on them. Edit. No, not the driftwood. They had all finished their service. Stripper ran out of whipped cream to put on her bits. We started grabbing random condiments like mayonnaise and ketchup. She rubbed the ketchup all over her snatch and shit got weird. She had a panic attack and ran to the bathroom then disappeared. Edit. Spelling. Edit 2. Further recollections. I'm fairly certain she was coming down from her latest pick-me-up and it all hit her when she looked down and saw her nether region smothered in ketchup while a gang of drunken idiots laugh at her in the wee hours of the morning. That's got to be someone's rock bottom. Hi, I'm on the opposite end of this. I used to be a dancer years ago. One night, a rather adventurous friend of mine asked me if I would like to do a bachelor party with her. Needing some extra money, I agreed and we drove down to the meeting place. It ended up being at some sort of hall. Metal chairs with cheap fabric backing and the like. We drove about an hour in rural country to get there. It's the four of us. Myself, V, and our two bodyguards. We're paid $1,000 to do a girl-on-girl dance. Nothing very extravagant. Just some light belt whipping and whipped cream and chocolate play. Consisting of the tricks only. We would steal the belt from the groom, spank random guests and eventually wrap the belt on his neck and ride him like a pony in panties so his buddies could really whip his ass too. We put on a fun show. Guys loved it. Made an extra $600 in those 30 minutes. Rinsed off and dressed in a sexy outfit to go to floor dances. Holy fuck, was I just simply not ready for the next act. Edit. These were subcontracted girls who I didn't know at all. They came from a different area and were not my friend and I. These girls started off purely playful. Decent dancing and hot bodies. They start getting hot with each other, actually burying their faces in muffs, teasing, etc. But then, oh god, then, they whipped out the double header. It was a black dong about 3 feet long, probably 2 inches thick. They go at each other hardcore, until they're ass to ass with each other and the best man is doing the legwork by rocking the dildo boat. He was a pretty good metronome. Guys hollering, throwing money and laughing, spraying beer cake foam over them, pictures and such, etc. She shit. I don't just mean it plopped out or sprayed. She had a huge fucking shit. It was bubbling. Fart bubble visibly popping. Sewer stink. Pouring out like a bad chocolate fountain with too much milk type shit. It was everywhere. The other girl got away from her jet mostly, but yanked away so quickly she still had the dildo in her ass and was dragging it behind her on all fours like some damaged dog. They performed for $500. Don't buy cheap strippers. Not cheating related, but a friend of mine went batshit Brazil during her hens at Bangkok. Most of us were from Malaysia and one of the girls flew in specifically from Melbourne just for that weekend to celebrate her hens. That Melbourne girl too had everything planned out for the trip because whenever we asked Brazil what she'd like to do for her hens, she'd go all, up to you guys, but I wanna do some shopping, nails and massage. So itinerary was, day 1 shopping, day 2 nails and day 3 massage before we set off. Brazilla went full blown crazy, screaming at the top of her lungs and complaining about how this is her hens, and how we're just doing whatever that we want instead of whatever she wants. made fun of some transsexual who did her hair, mimicking her actions and tone of voice in front of her, transsexual, while we're all feeling utterly embarrassed for her actions. Threatened to fly back to Malaysia every single night. When all hell broke loose, we finally sat her down and talked to her. This was the last night before we fly off the next day. Told her about her actions and she still thinks we're all wrong. How we're ruining her hens, etc. One thing's for sure, when we asked her if she really was intending to fly back to Malaysia, she said no and that there are no flights back anyway. I was fuming inside. True enough, once we're back, I hardly met up with her. Only attended her wedding because I have reserved way in advance and I'm not the kind of person who breaks my promise. I don't need a friend like that. So glad this got asked. I was at my buddy's bachelor party in Montreal. His thing was relatively tame. However, as we're walking from the strip club to the bar, we end up behind a bunch of college girls who came up from the States to drink. They're all dressed in their club gear and completely hammered. I see one particularly wobbly young woman wearing incredibly high heels. She takes a misstep and rolls her fucking ankle so bad her shin touches the sidewalk. She straight up broke her leg but was so drunk she kept on trucking. I run up to one of the more sober looking members of her group and am like, your friend just broke her leg. Unfortunately she and her friends think I'm trying to pick them up. I'm like, I'm married and 10 years older than you, but you should probably take care of your friend. Meanwhile the injured woman's leg is already swelling up. Also, at my bachelor party, the strip club we went to ended up being the venue for the Macro Wrestling Federation, so instead of boobies I got little person wrestling. My friends also got a store clerk to detain me for shoplifting as a prank. Not gonna lie, I would much rather watch little person wrestling than go to a strip club. Edit. Thin not thin. My friend's bachelor party in Chicago. We held it in my friend's place of business, a lounge. After hours, they hired 2 strippers which were actually prostitutes. They come in with a huge dude packing a big ass gun in his belt. He sits down and smokes blunts the entire time. The girls literally went around the room giving everyone blowjobs. Like not in private, but just going in a circle. My one buddy decided he's going to eat the stripper's ass while she's giving head. This is like 5 minutes into the party. Everyone is sober. I'm in shock. My turn comes around and I want nothing to do with it. The stripper says I can take her in back and have sex instead if I want. I respectfully decline. Eventually she gets to the groom and he doesn't really seem into it either. Peer pressure gets to him and he reluctantly gets a blowjob in the bathroom. All my friends make him open the door so they can watch a stripper sit on a toilet and give him head while they talk to him the whole time. At this point I'm chit-chatting the security guy on the couch. They end the show by sticking Roman candles in their ass and pussy, and put on a fireworks show. Imagine 2 naked women on their back with Roman candles in each hole, sitting across from each other shooting fireworks at their naked bodies. Yeah, then they go down on each other and my booty munching friend goes back for round 2. That's when I decided I'd had enough and pack it in. You can't make this shit up. And that's why I find the concept of these types of bachelor parties insane. You're getting married, for fuck's sake, why go have sex with a stripper? When my friend's bachelor party happened we all had beer, pizza and a general good time. For mine we rented a limo, got drunk in it, went to a few bars, got drunker. Then I threw up on the side of the highway. We all laughed and got home around 2 AM. That's a normal amount of crazy. No one got in fights. There was no fucking prostitutes or anything weird. I find these stories with the group blowjobs and fucking strippers thing just absolute madness. I totally agree. I have zero tolerance for cheating. My bachelor party was a fishing trip followed by a damn good dinner at a steakhouse, then some drinks after that. It was perfect. We had an ongoing rule through the weekend that if you were holding a pint, and someone managed to get a nominated coin into it, you had to down it immediately. It was, I think, a Brazilian real. Whatever it was a big old coin. Significant diameter and a good, sturdy thickness. Anyway, one of the chaps ended up swallowing the coin along with the beer. I'll never forget the look of realization on his face, and I can imagine the other look on his face a couple of days later. Another one that comes to mind. My brother-in-law was dressed as a fox and the rest of us were country gentlemen. Tweed, flat caps, etc. It was a good theme tbh. It was a boozy weekend, but nothing particularly crazy went down. At about 3 AM on the second night, before we were going to go home, the groom went for a dance in a fountain. He slipped and smashed his head on the ground. Really bad. Some paramedics arrived and had to, of course, cut him out of his all-in-one hooded fox costume, by now covered in blood. He went to hospital and had the wound glued up, and we can laugh about it as thankfully there was no long-term damage, apart from perhaps to his pride, when the blood-soaked half-shredded fox costume was brandished in the best man's speech. I've only heard of Brits doing this, but they say God save the Queen, since she's on the coin, and being good patriots they do it. The groom being coerced, with money, to have one of the strippers pee on his face. Edit. It was only about $100. Either most of the money had already been spent or the groom has a bit of a fetish. Edit 2.0. There was another gent attending that had convinced himself that others would give him money to go through the same thing with the second stripper. He was a little distraught when no one offered him any money after his golden shower. Stripper number 2 had some very glowing, cloudy P2. Back in the 80s my friend's brother's bachelor party was the first I'd ever been to, and me and my friends were all about 19. It was held in a room over a sketchy volunteer firehouse. The skanky bartender doubled as the evening's entertainment, and at one point stripped naked, laid the bride's father on the floor, sat on his face, and then proceeded to blow the groom. It was far from anything erotic or cool, just sad and nasty, and not the good nasty, either. My friends and I were like, this can't be good, and sorta noped out of there at that point. So I can't tell you what happened next, but I doubt anything good happened. Edit. Sorry, I've been traveling for the past week and didn't see all the replies. More details I'm not sure if the bride ever found out, but the wedding happened. To no one's surprise, the marriage barely lasted a year before disintegrating. The father of the bride was shot and killed a year later by a sibling during a family dispute. So there were a lot of issues, to say the least. What is it about volley fire departments? I joined the one in my hometown, and about 6 months in a bunch of us were playing poker, and as the game started to peter out, one of the players offered up his extremely skanky girlfriend for a gangbang. I was 19. He was like 22, and the other 2 players were married guys in their 40s. Very awkward. Thanks, man. We never saw her again, and the guy who offered her up pretended like it never happened. Had a friend hit $250K on a $5 slot machine at a Shreveport casino on his bachelor party 2 weeks before the ceremony. With his newfound wealth, he decided to ask his fiancée to sign a prenup. She refused. She had referred to it as our money from the first moment she heard the good news. And so, he walked away. Everyone hated him for it. He was practically excommunicated from all our social circles. 10 years later and she's filed bankruptcy twice. In hindsight he made the right decision. Girl I went to high school with didn't want her husband to have some random stripper at his party that will probably give him some disease. So instead she got her little sister, 20 at the time, to dance at the party instead. Not because she could trust her sister to not screw her husband, but because she knew her sister didn't have any diseases. Yeah, little sister stripped, then gave him a BJ, then got on top and fucked him. In front of all the other guys. We just watched in silence. It wasn't erotic, but more of a curiosity. Okay, this is gonna be a weird one. Basically a girl in my town married and was having her bachelorette party 4 days prior to her wedding. The party started off fun and, of course, everyone got drunk quite quickly. But later that evening, her 4 best friends had a special surprise for the bride. They got into a hotel room to find a stripper from England. Bride was from Germany. This fact will be relevant later on. Well, one thing led to another and the girls started to make out with each other and then with the stripper. Suddenly one of the bridesmaids pulls out a bag of cocaine and they want to try it. What is the best way to snort cocaine during your bachelorette party? Of course, off of a stripper's dick. After they got high, a few girls had sex with the stripper, one of them being the bird's best friend, married and a mother of a 9-year-old. But now comes the best part. The stripper filmed it all. The girls knew about this and even hold the camera. His phone. After that night, the stripper left the country and was not seen again. The bride married her husband 4 days later and no one wanted to talk about that night again. About a week after the marriage, the stripper shows the video to some German guy in a bar in England. Turns out this guy actually knew the girls and was even at the wedding. One thing led to another and the video ended up being on Pornhub and several other porn sites. It still is on there, oh yeah, and of course they got divorced a few days later. Edit. This whole story blew up in Germany in a social network that many people use around here called Jodel. When you find the video you will see all these comments that they came there from Jodel. It is a crazy story and it is even crazier that I see her every day in our small town. Sorry for all my grammar and spelling mistakes. I am really tired and English is obviously not my first language. That sounds fucking sad for the husband. What about the married best friend? What happened to the hubbies? Did they move on with their lives? Buddy of mine went old school and had his bachelor party the night before the wedding. Right around 1 AM I get a call from my husband, who was a groomsman. Babe, you need to come get us. Now. Why? Eric got punched by a stripper. The groom had a large T-shaped bruise right above his eye where the girl's ring hit him. Next day it was worse. Once again got a call for aid from the husband 15 minutes before the ceremony. To date that was the best makeup I've ever done. Edit. To answer several questions. T-shaped bruise. As in cross-shaped. As in Jesus. She was wearing a crucifix ring. Why did he get punched? Stripper 1 was going after stripper 2 who was trying to steal stripper 1's tips. Very drunk groom dodged the wrong way. Bro lie, can confirm number. Security footage exists and I saw it's over. No, I don't have access and cannot post it. How did I see it? Stripper 2 pressed charges on stripper 1. The bachelor party was too drunk to be useful and identify each other in the footage. So I did. Why did I get involved? I was the maid of honor. Barges in the door. Groomsmen call for aid. And Hootie Puff will answer. So several years ago, while at his bachelor party, my buddy, the groom, got it on with a stripper. Shortly after getting married, he found out his wife, at a bachelorette party, had slept with a male stripper. Here's where it gets crazy. Fast forward a few years and they are still together, on vacation somewhere. and they run into the guy who had fucked my buddy's wife at a bachelorette party. He had gotten married. His wife, the stripper who fucked my buddy at his bachelor party. Apparently they were both attending the same college at the time when my buddy was getting married, and they were both doing side jobs to make extra cash. Craziest thing I've ever heard about in my life. On mine right now. Nothing crazy, but my baby sister brought a crock pot. She is now making chili in my hotel room. Is that why high-class hookers cost so much? They don't shit all over everything. You get what you pay for, I guess. Usually the higher class ones are on drugs and won't fade out on your lap and shit themselves. What if I want them to put a double-headed dildo in their asses and drag it behind them on all fours like some damaged dogs? There were strippers who came to the hotel room and were getting most of the guys super horny. They left and everyone got super drunk and people passed out. I was laying down but still awake when I noticed a head bobbing up and down. I slowly turn and open my eyes and the groom is blowing the best man. The best man taps his shoulder and gives a no face and the groom doesn't stop. Then after the best man is done coming, the groom takes the best man's dick and makes sure he got all the cum by licking what was left of it off of his dick. I will never forget that image. The best man then pulls up his pants and they go to sleep. I mean, while I'm freaking out in my head while I am laying there, I didn't sleep, didn't tell anyone about it until now. He was obviously just making sure he wasn't gay before he got married to a woman. You never know. He just had to check first. I was waiting for one of these stories to turn gay. Frankly, I'm surprised I had to scroll this far down. I didn't see it, but my co-worker told me about it. His brother was getting married and they hired some stripper hooker for the night. He said cut to a couple hours later and they all were in a circle with their dicks out, as she's blowing them one after the other. I think what made the story much more memorable to me was how elated he was to tell me, with a big smile on his face laughing. I could be totally off here, but I think I'd have a tough time keeping an erection when I'm up against Steve from the mail room's hairy knees. I'm also curious as to how the stripper can do this. I mean, she is either really good at making guys come fast, isn't doing it to completion, or has built up the dick-sucking muscles in her face to the point where they just don't get tired quickly. So my best friend got married a few years back. We threw this crazy bachelor party and rented a cabin in the Pocono Mountains. Weekend of drinking, smoking and debauchery. We hear about this crazy strip club that will shuttle you to and from your rental. Awesome. We get a ride in this white Dodge van that two bouncers come pick us up in. We get there and it looks like your typical strip club. Bars and tables. Girls dancing on stage and walking around. It's packed and obvious there are multiple bachelor parties going on. So we're having a good time watching guys be embarrassed on stage and whatnot. Some of the guys in our group are chatting and laughing and whispering OMG really type stuff. No sooner am I asking what's going on when the hottest female I have ever laid eyes on comes up and start grinding on me. I mean, really going at it. I'm enjoying myself when she leans back, grand my junk through my pants, and whispers $100 and I'll get you off. It's hitting me as she goes on. Holy fuck, we're in a whorehouse. I look around and every girl's a fucking 10 plus. I'm trying to hold back a seizure mixed with a raging mega boner. Can't do it. I think to myself, I'm married. Fuck, almost all of us are married. We all sorta agree not to do anything we would regret. So just dances. So the night goes on pretty uneventful and we realize one of our gang is missing. The groom's brother-in-law. After like 2 hours he shows up. Hair disheveled, a daze in his eyes and a big grin in his face. We're like, dude, where the fuck have you been? To which he replies, I don't know, but I'm out like $800. The funniest, most awkward part was our ride back to the cabin. Amongst a drunken group someone blurted out about fucking a stripper. The driver perked up and asked what he said. I butted in and said nah, he's fucking wasted man, he's just kidding. The driver, who was a bouncer, says whatever man, but you should probably clean your dick with bleach and get tested. Dead fucking silence the rest of the ride back. The strippers started fight each other and pulled out a gun lol. We had to kick them out and expedite our party bus plans. Where the hell was she keeping a gun? He asked, not wanting to know the answer. Not me, but my sister's bachelorette party had a stripper whip his dick out and stick it in a bride-to-be's mouth on stage. I'm not sure if that's normal for male strippers, but good lord. Also, my sister got a lap dance and ended up with blood on her dress somehow. Sketchy. Edit. There was another bachelorette party there. My sister wasn't the one with a dick in her mouth. Also, my sister got a lap dance and ended up with blood on her dress somehow. Did a hilarious night ensue involving your sister trying to get alcohol to a high school party? Not me, but my sister's bachelorette party had a stripper whip his dick out and stick it in a bride-to-be's mouth on stage. I've done some pretty extensive internet research on the subject, and I can assure you that is completely normal. Dancing Bear. I've been told about such things. Never seen them myself. Even Dancing Bear is staged. It's an illusion that it's random. But in actuality there's certain tells in the audience which women will get picked. Jewelry, body language, etc. I read a forum about this. They post ads on Craigslist looking for women as bystanders. You get paid to just be in the back. You get paid more to suck the cock. And you get paid the most to take the money shot to the face. The ones who are willing to do stuff are probably wearing wristbands or something to identify them. But yes, occasionally the bystanders will get drunk and maybe get hands, etc. You can tell by watching the videos. A lot of girls react in disgust lol. This isn't going to be anywhere near as horrific as what I'm sure most people will have to say here, but my friend invited an absolute scumbag to her hen party about 7 years ago. Her reputation was that she was trash, but she showed up like a different person and was actually very nice the whole night. She was on her best behavior, buying rounds of drinks, showing a genuine interest in conversations. The whole works. She even offered to look after the coats and bags while we got up to dance. Halfway through the first song we all turned around to find her rifling through everyone's belongings. She locked eyes with us while she had one hand full of banknotes and the other full of someone's cigarettes. She wasn't at the wedding. Played the long con. Clever bitch. Edit. Please stop replying clever girl. I love Jurassic Park 2. Y'all. But my inbox sure don't. Edit 2. Okay, I should have expected that. God damn it. Reading this, I felt the need to inform my husband that I didn't cheat on him during my bachelorette party. Once he figured out why I was telling him this. Him. Oh. Okay dear. Me. This is when you tell me you didn't cheat on me either. Him. I got drunk and played video games. I don't think there were any girls there. Just because there were no girls there doesn't mean he didn't cheat. You know what they say, any hole's a goal. Actually, this one involved a former GF of mine during the reception. She went into the parking lot and received anal from the groom. The bride caught them in the act. Then the bride put on someone's cowboy boots and kicked the living shit out of her. This is a small town and she moved away for a few years, but everyone in town knows who she is. The happy couple stayed together. Sounds like no one wanted a stripper in the first place. Why not just stock up on Mountain Dew and Doritos and have an non-traditional bachelor party? Edit. Since I have an inbox full of Bachelorette Party stories. Let me just say that I hate both. A wedding is a big expensive party about your relationship. Why do you need two more expensive parties right beforehand? If marriage actually means giving up your friendships and leisure activities, you're doing it wrong. My bachelor party was escape room, dinner, D&D. Certainly more fun than being a literal dickhead. For mine, we went to my friend's summer house for the weekend. Stockpiled it with smoked meats and lots of weed. No women. Lots of blunts. Had a campfire. It was perfect. I used to work at one of the busiest bars in my city. Very popular for stag hen nights from all over the country, neighboring countries. We saw some really messed up stuff with stag hen nights. Worst stag do we had were all very loud, very aggressive, and very drunk. Feed booked out a room upstairs and hired in strippers. We later found the stag, Bachelor, going down on one of the strippers, in the middle of the bar downstairs. When security stepped in, he tried to fight all of them. Unwise. The worst hen was much worse. Ended up having to give a statement to the police. There were about 20 women ages ranging from 20s to 60s, all dressed up as minions, with the hen, Bachelorette, being a minion in a dress. They started off alright, pretty loud, but you can't blame them for that. But as the night went on, the hen got extremely drunk. I was on the floor collecting glasses when I walked past a crowd gathered around one of the ground level speakers. I stepped in to see what was going on, but I was not prepared. The hen was sitting, legs splayed, underwear gone, with about 3 different people's hands all having a feel. She seems to be loving the attention, beckoning people to join in and waving at the people filming. At this point I call security over and they disperse the crowd, and bring the hen into one of the quiet areas, give her some water, make sure she's okay. She seems happy, but the rest of the party are either arguing with each other or crying. Her mother, also at the party, was definitely not happy, but the worst part was when one of the people filming came into the quiet area to tell her that he knows her fiancé, and had already sent him the video. She then ordered security to phone the police and changed her story from "just a bit of fun on my hen night" to "I was raped." The whole thing was awful. Dressed as minions. Hold up. This is a thing bachelorette parties do? Yeah, IDKY. None of the replies are talking about them being dressed as fucking minions. There is a video floating around out there of a woman dressed as a minion getting finger banged by 3 dudes while other minions stand around and watch. I've never needed to see anything more in my life. Don't forget to mention, she later said she was raped, while willfully letting people touch her, woo her while dressed as a minion. OP never specified if the finger blasters were dudes or not. I actually assumed everyone involved were women for whatever reason. I wonder which it is. My co-worker used to work at a strip club. He said one night a bachelor party came in to celebrate. Well, they look over and there is a huge bag of coke out on the table and this guy is going to town. Well, the bouncer was told to take care of the situation. He was apparently 6 feet 7 inches, 350 pounds. Huge guy. Well, he told the guy he's gotta cut that out. The dude, who's the bachelor, turned around and hit the bouncer with a right hook on the jaw. Knocked the guy out cold. He said he fell over like a tree. My co-worker said he leaped over the table and with all his might Superman punched this dude right in the jaw. Took it like a champ. Didn't even faze him, he said. All hell breaks loose and it's like a scene from a movie. He said when the cops finally showed, no table was unturned. At one point he said 5 guys were on The Bachelor and he stood up like it was nothing. After it took the cops 7 officers to arrest him, they find out it was PCP. They all were charged with drug possession and mob action. The guy's wedding was the next day, so he missed it. Idiot. Anyways, the whole conversation started over crackhead strength, to which he replied, let me tell you about PCP strength. Man, that's some strong shit. Do muscles even have the strength to stand up with 5 guys if he couldn't do it while not on PCP? I can understand the punch not even phasing the guy. The human body is actually very strong. The issue is that we have a fairly large number of restraints built in to stop us from hurting ourselves. Limits that keep us from pushing muscles to the point of tearing, or from causing damage to our internal organs through overuse, etc. Adrenaline can temporarily overcome some of those limits to allow us to deal with situations of extreme stress or danger. That's why you get stories of little old ladies pulling cars off of their grandkids, etc. PCP is the end-all be-all of limit suppression. Of course, if you survive, you have to deal with the after effects, which may be permanent damage, because those limits exist for a reason. It is important to note that the insane psychotic rage response to PCP is fairly rare, but is common in the media due to how well it plays. So take it with a grain of salt. Muscles are crazy strong. I had a teacher who used to work in a coal mine. He once told us that someone he worked with got crushed by falling rock, but not quickly. This guy was literally clawing at the ground around him and crushing rocks in his hands until he died. Obviously, he'd have had strong hands as part of the job, and I don't know what type of rock it was, but it's still hardcore. So sad though. Edit. To clarify, his death and the brutal way he died was sad. Yeah, it was one of those glimpses into someone's life that reminds you that there is so much you don't know about people. To me, he was a nice, but rather reserved design and technology teacher. But to find out that he'd only gone into teaching after losing his job in a mine and he'd lived with those dangers and those experiences, there was a real disconnect. Couldn't imagine him doing that, or missing it as he clearly did. Edit. Word. We were a bunch of nerds in the 90s. Set up a giant LAN party for our buddy getting married. Someone hired a stripper. She gave us a shopping list of things to get, including a banana. Someone brought a plantain instead. Stripper arrives and is older than all of us. We tried to convince her to play Doom. She would not. Half the party just played video games while the other half awkwardly tried to interact with the stripper. She was not impressed with the plantain. After about 20 minutes she said she would do something real special for the groom if she could leave early. We agreed. She put him in a mask with a dildo for a nose and fucked herself with it. Super awkward. Edit. I think a lot of you are under the impression that we were somehow mean to this stripper. We just asked her to play Doom. She said no thanks, then put on her show. When we gave her the plantain, she just said that is not a banana and put it aside. She gave zero fucks about the guys that just wanted to play computer games. She was tipped well and we were very nice to her. No strippers were harmed in the making of this comment. Anyway, we were teasing Ivy about hooking up with a stripper based on his World of Warcraft prowess. Of all things, he sheepishly admits, yeah, I've never played that game. Everything I know is from other people telling me about it. I just bluffed my way through that entire conversation. Legend. Bachelor party in Chicago. Strippers hired to come to a house. By the end of the night, one of the strippers ended up having anal sex with an attendee in the bathroom. He pulled out and left a poo-poo mushroom stamp on the toilet seat. Then the whole party went to have a look as the stripper sat in the corner crying. Edit. My first gold. Thanks. Edit 2. I think I need to clarify. The stripper was crying of embarrassment. It eventually became a talking point and her 2 fellow strippers had a good laugh about it. She was not raped. This was at midnight-ish and the party continued after that for many hours. She stayed and had fun after the fact. Poo poo mushroom stamp. This is one of those phrases that I don't think anyone has said before. I was at a Bachelorette, also in Chicago, and the stripper we called showed up all drugged up, was his own hype man, whipped out his sklong and proceeded to thump it in everyone's face. Who'd allow it? Then he dry humped the bride, tried to remove her panties and she immediately yelled right over. Then he stood around awkwardly before trying to pull each girl into a room with him. No. After he realized a chain bang wasn't going to happen, he chilled and had tacos with us with his cock out. 10/10 would laugh at it again. Whole party got drunk. Best man admitted to having slept with the bride. Massive bar fight followed. Groom lost one of his front teeth. The wedding still happened, but he kept his mouth shut in all the pictures. Best man was nowhere to be seen and the title was given to the groom's other brother. Edited because people seemed to have an issue with the word ensued. Slept with the bride as in cheated or before they got serious, because the latter is the only reason why I can see you continuing the wedding. Cheated. The groom definitely wasn't the attractive brother, but he was a nice guy. She was a dime, but had a shit personality. They're still married. We all know she still cheats on him, but I think he's just too insecure to leave her. It's all really shitty, but we can't force him to realize he's too good for her. How do you still get married to the girl that slept with your best man? Both would be out of my life in that very fucking moment. Edit. I know about the brother, damn it lol, just didn't think that more important than the fact that he still married the girl who cheated on him with his brother. Now that this has been explained, stop telling Emmy about his brother lol. My nephew was getting married and we're 3 years apart in age, so I was his best man and we're both very inexperienced with finding strippers at this point. So we go to a strip club and ask a bouncer how we could find a stripper or if we could hire one from the place we were at. He pretty much gets in the way of us walking into the rest of the strip bar and says something like, "I got a girl for you." We talk about price and he gives us his number. We walked out of there shocked at how easy it was. Looking back on it, it was too easy. The night of the party comes a week and a half later. We called him 2 nights beforehand and told him what time she needed to be there and where. Right on time the stripper shows up. At first it seemed she was alone, but out from behind the door frame the bouncer revealed himself. We weren't scared of him robbing us, he was a pretty nice guy, so we invite him in and give him a beer. The girl is a dime and she starts dancing, and one of the more perverted of our friends brought dollar bills and was trying to put it in her thong while trying to get some groping action. This goes on too long and too often. The bouncer looked visibly uncomfortable and kind of upset. I didn't really understand why, until the one friend got real handsy, grab of the cheek and slight twist combo, and the stripper turned around, slapped him and looked at the bouncer and said, "Baby, aren't you gonna do anything about this?" We then all slowly turned to the bouncer and realized he had brought his girlfriend to come strip at our party. He tried to play it off and said something like, "It's part of the job, sweetheart." Don't know why I remember him as Italian with a leather coat on. He wasn't really. She gets angry and the bouncer starts to panic while also trying to play it cool. He walks over to her and they start whisper yelling at each other. She's pissed and he's trying to keep the atmosphere up. He steps back after he thought the situation was under control and turned the music up and starts a poor attempt at motivational fist pumping. She stood there with her arms crossed staring directly at him, seemingly questioning every decision that led up to this point. He continues making an honest effort to make it work. Out of nowhere it must have clicked in her head and she came to the decision after 2-3 minutes of deliberating while watching this guy try to get her to start stripping dancing. Walks over to him, turns off the music, and broke up with him in the other room. She was pretty much in a bra and a thong. The bouncer was holding her jacket, and I've never seen someone walk out so sexy and so confident. The bouncer cowered out of the kitchen, obviously upset, eyes possibly a little wet. Awkward eye contact between me and him ensued, and he went after her and the party didn't really recover. TL. Dr. A bouncer at a strip club brought his girlfriend to my nephew's bachelor party to strip, and they broke up during the party. One of the guys had a what happens in Vegas idea about the whole thing and kept trying to get the groom laid. He wandered off to find a hooker. The problem is we weren't even remotely close to Vegas or a hooker 4 miles, so it was just an ordinary casino night, but with one guy off in the background walking up to random women he assumed would sell their bodies for money. Do people really do that? Go out and get laid as a pre-celebration for their wedding? The first conversation I ever had on Reddit was with a woman who slept with a male stripper on her bachelorette party. She got pregnant shortly thereafter, and about 8 months later wasn't sure if her child would be her husband's or her stripper's, and wanted advice. Bonus: she denied that what she did was cheating, as they weren't officially married quite yet. Well, if it wasn't cheating, then I'm sure she told her husband about the dilemma, right? Did the genetic testing scene for a while. Holy shit, so many kids are illegitimate. Should specify, the testing was not intended for paternity. However, we could see a bias in favor of cases of illegitimacy. If people are being referred to us when they have irregular inheritance patterns going on, suggesting potentially among a list of things, illegitimacy. Bonus: she denied that what she did was cheating, as they weren't officially married quite yet. Dumbus. As if it's not cheating to have sex with somebody who wasn't her boyfriend. I've seen this in a lot of movie and always had the same thought in my head. You are still a couple before you get married, even if you are not husband and wife. Bachelorette part. I randomly met them. I like dancing. Used to be good looking. So bachelorette parties I used to have fun with. The bachelorette starts getting really handsy. I tell her friends they should look out for her. About 30 minutes later I see her in the corner giving some guy a hand job. I mention it to her friends, who had all lost track of her. They go to stop her. She drags him by the dick into the men's bathroom. I saw a stripper fist her own asshole. She threw the condom afterwards and it hit my friend on the head. It was pretty funny. These strippers were out there, man. They went down on each other and fisted each other. I remember one allowing the groom to use a dildo on her. He went jackhammer style on her and she did not like that. Probably has to be my friend's bachelor party. We went to a casino, where he got very drunk. Ended up blowing thousands of dollars that night, and he didn't seem to realize what he had done until the next morning. He was unemployed at the time and the money he spent was supposed to go towards their honeymoon. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I am pretty sure he got a divorce. That's gotta be the worst way to start off a marriage that doesn't involve cheating or anything illegal. Where the fuck were this guy's friends? Best man, who lets their blacked out friend blow a few grand on his bachelor party? Seems irresponsible for an unemployed drunk man to be in a casino with thousands of dollars in the first place. WCGW? I know nobody wanted to be a buzzkill, but if he was unemployed and losing money like mad, didn't anyone try to talk some sense into him? Late to the party and told this one on Reddit before, but it makes me smile. Went to a chili house and the best man and groom were trying chili oil on tortilla chips. Went up through the Scoville scale. 10,000, 100,000, 500,000, then 1.2 million. The most they could legally let us try. Both were in tears. Anyway, after that we left and the best man showed me that he had bought some 1.6 million chili oil to put in the groom's pint later. The next bar we went to we were all sat chatting when the best man puts his hand in his pocket and when it comes out it's covered in a red liquid. His face slowly changes as he realizes that the bottle has cracked in his pocket and chili oil is now slowly spreading its way across his groin. He gets up and legs it to the bathroom as we all crease up. He comes out about 20 minutes later visibly limping and says he's gonna have to go back to the hotel to change. That night he was dancing like a man who had had his balls tasered, but the real fun was the next night when another friend of mine came out of the bar toilet pissing himself laughing and waved me over. I went in and the best man turns from the urinal to show his penis, which is now half bleached ivory white. This was over a year ago and it's still in that state, so we're quite positive that it's permanent. He calls it his jalapenis. Well, it was my best friend's Marie Bachelorette party. Me, Marie, her mom, sister-in-law, and our friends went out to eat, then went dancing downtown. Totally got trashed. Her family were the only ones who were sober. They drove Marie and I. Marie decided she wanted to go to a bar across town. Then she started throwing up in her mom's car, all over the floor and herself. We get to this other bar and get her a reusable grocery bag to bath in. I walked like a mile, in my high heels, to go her a glass of water from the bar. When I come back everyone is pissed cause Marie won't get out of the car and keeps missing the grocery bag we gave her to throw up in. So I come up to her and tell her, Marie, come on, get out of the car. Now she says, OMG hello goodbye 92, you're supposed to be my free IE and starts crying. I grab her around the waist, she's a tiny thing, and pull her out of the car and make her sit on the door frame. Once she stops throwing up we decide to just go home. Well then I started throwing up. I had enough sense to hang my head out the car window. I probably terrified all of the other drivers. I guess the way the window was made caused Marie's sister-in-law, who was sitting in the far back seat, to get hit with a fine spray of my vomit. There was a massive swath of vomit along the side of the car. We made it back to Marie's mom's house. They helped us drunk bitches inside. I went into the shower. I'm super close with Marie's family, but I never wanted them to see me like that. I blacked out in the shower. I came to a few times, one of which was everyone helping Marie go to the bathroom. Then someone screamed it's on the floor. Someone grabbed toilet paper and picked something up off the floor. Come to find out Marie must have not communicated to her family that she was in the process of pooping. They tried lifting her off the toilet and a turd fell on the floor. We all went to bed and me and Marie kinda woke up at 7 AM. I told her about the bathroom incident then. She was mortified, even more so when she found some evidence under one of her fake nails. Edit. Formatting and grammar. Edit 2. I don't want to be that person, but holy fuck, I can't believe I got gold. Thank you so much, whoever gave it to me. I'm in awe. I've never had it. This is my highest upvoted comment, by far, by a lot. I am positively shocked. I'm happy I could make people laugh a bit. Now if Marie sees this, she is an infrequent redditor, she is going to fucking murder me. Finally nobody cheats or fucking dies in one of these stories. 10/10 good going mate. That was a fucking train wreck but it was awesome. You should add some page breaks. Wow. You should give talks for DARE, the anti-drug group, because that's just about the best reason I've heard so far not to drink. You're telling me. Thankfully, that was the first time I've ever thrown up from drinking. First and only time blacking out. Second and last time I threw up was the couple's wedding reception, which is a huge story all its own. UK co-workers of mine decide to throw a stag do for their friend in Prague, something like 2 weekends before the wedding. Everyone gets shit-faced. They keep talking about strippers and girls, but no one has any idea how to go about finding one. The best man decides he'll go find out, and the groom follows him. No one sees them for the rest of the night. They don't answer phones. We end up going back to the hotel debating if we should call the cops and report them missing. Same story the following morning. Someone checks with the front desk and they apparently checked out in the middle of the night. They were sharing a room. We all get back that Sunday. Best man shows up for work on Monday saying the groom-to-be has something king to do. We all got please do not come to the wedding email from the wedding organizer that week. Turns out the groom had a major I don't think I want to get married moment while they were out looking for strippers. Came out to his best man as gay, and then left for Israel the following morning to see a guy he had a crush on since high school. Apparently the bride to this day believes one of the guys at the party turned him gay and refuses to speak to any of his friends. Friend of mine was getting married. On his stag bachelor party in Newcastle he pulled some girl. Like I've been on a lot of stag do's but this was the first time the groom has ever cheated. Anyway he goes home with this girl then next day we fly back to London. His wife-to-be picks him up from the airport 20 minutes into the car journey home. She asks him why he is so quiet. For some unknown reason he then decides to tell her everything. Wedding gets called off. He then moves up to Newcastle to be with his new woman. It lasts 2 months. He then comes back to London with his tail between his legs. Gets back with his ex-bride-to-be. They eventually got married about a year later. No one has really seen him since his wife now doesn't let him out of her sight. A good times. Edit. Wow. Didn't expect so many replies. Agree with a lot of what's being said. Like I said earlier, it's the first time I've ever witnessed a groom be unfaithful on a stag. Like I've seen a lot of blokes have strippers all over them etc, but that's kind of expected and half the time you can see how awkward they all feel. As far as broken trust and conscious etc go, agree with broken trust. He fucked up for sure and to be fair he deserves everything she gave him. Conscious. Tough one really. Personally I think he should have kept his mouth shut and made it up to her by being a good husband when they got married and not doing it again. Last thing I need to add that I didn't. He and her had kids at the time of the stag, 3 of them. That's kind of why I thought he should have kept his mouth shut. For them and the good of the family. I am not condoning it at all. I do wanna say I think this was kind of out of character for him as well. Maybe that added to things. Hey ho. Last but not least, the best thing for all concerned would have been for him not to be such a fucking idiot and keep it in his pants in the first place. Absolute fucking bell end the fella. His wife now doesn't let him out of her sight. Broken trust is one of the worst things to happen to a relationship. No matter how much you love each other, no matter how good you two are together otherwise, trust is something that can never be fully repaired. Went to a bachelor party in the mountains. People decided to go into the little hick town to go to a bar. Brought townies back to the house to use the hot tub. One of the groomsmen ended up cheating on his wife with one of the townies and eventually left his wife and kid for her after he knocked her up. We went paintballing in the afternoon and at one point the groom was laying down sniping when a kid snuck up behind him and just unloaded on the groom's ass. Which would be hilarious, but the paintball found its way to groom's ballsack. It swelled up like an orange and he wasn't able to go to the strip club that night nor consume at the wedding the following day. 16 years later and his wife's still pretty pissed about it even though the rest of us think it's pretty hilarious in hindsight. Edit. Well, this blew up like nugget. Edited words and removed unnecessary TLDR due to popular request. Also, some peeps are mad that I said it was hilarious. Just the idea of my dude sniping and then getting shot in the ass is just funny. Getting shot repeatedly is terrible. And no, the kid didn't get his ass kicked. There were too many random kids and we had no idea who did it. We shot at him but he was too fast. We were too old. C'est la vie. Paintballed for a bachelor's party of a friend. 2. After the match, we lined up, made him speak his last words and just executed him. He was some very good sport, considering that he had these big red circles all over his body, but since no nightclubs were involved, the following evening we just got shit-faced at the hotel bar, then ate a pizza and went to a huge foam party in a big swimming pool. One guy lost his flip-flops, another one slipped and cut his eyebrow, another one got his cell phone stolen. 3 of us lost the coach to go back to the hotel, so we had to wait for the first one at 6 AM. It was a Monday, we all took a day off, so it was the commuter's bus, people all dressed up to go to work, and these 3 morons, wearing a swimsuit and a t-shirt, walking on their same bus, still completely shit-faced, because we found a kiosk that was selling booze 24/7, ran by Amir, a very nice Bengali guy, one with half of his face covered in blood, getting on their same bus. Good times, yo. I take it you spent so long drinking at this 24/7 kiosk that you learned Amir's life story. Amir always runs the shops for the drunk people. He is an immortal being outside of time and space, the second incarnation of Dionysus. Amir also runs kebab shops. Imgur webpage. Okay, I had never read this chain of tweets but I have now, and I thank you for that. It made my day. Why do people have bachelor parties the day before? It's courting tragedy. It was my bachelor party and all we were supposed to do was go to strip clubs. Well, that went out the window when my best man hired hookers. Everyone but me sleeps with the hookers. I end up just talking to these girls and hearing their depressing stories. Anyway, cut to the end of the night. The hookers go into the other side of suite to get ready to leave. Little did we know they stole everything that wasn't nailed down. In total, with the room and the gifts to the girls, the bill was over $3,500. The credit card company saw the charge on the card and called the bank, who then called the best man's wife. Needless to say, she was a wee bit mad. Well, not really a bachelorette party, more of a shower given by my soon-to-be in-laws. Lots of conservative, friendly, polite church ladies. It was very thoughtful of them and they gave us lots of sweet gifts, and just about everyone gave us one of those little kitchen towels. As things were winding down, I said, "Wow, you must think newlyweds make a lot of messes that require dish towels." How everyone started blushing and looking away and I cringed so hard. It was a combo bachelor and bachelorette party and one attendee got really drunk and wanted to leave. The hosts had collected everyone's keys to prevent drunk driving and refused to return his keys he'd willingly given up earlier. He goes outside and shortly returns with a tire iron and just starts wailing on guests at the party, including bridesmaids and groomsmen. One of the other attendees grabs a big 6-cell mag light and clocks the aggressor over the head with it, killing him. No charges got filed because it was deemed justified and the wedding went on as planned. A few days later, I felt bad for the bride and groom because no amount of makeup was going to hide the bruises and missing teeth in the wedding photos. Holy shit, that's intense. This dude just starts hitting people with a tire iron? That would be terrifying. There was this one guy from out of town at my friend's bachelor party. Some shady dude that no one but the groom knew. They were friends from childhood. So Shady Dude is all about hookers and blow, and we make it to my other friend's house at the end of the night, and Shady Dude starts going to all these skeezy websites he knows about to find a dancer. So this dancer comes with her bouncer, who's this really sweet Jamaican 18-year-old who drives her around etc etc. The dancer does her dancing thing. Then the Shady Dude starts trying to set up private dances for everyone. The groom passes. The two gay guys in the party pass and head home. All of us pass, so the Shady Dude takes the dancer into my friend's room while my friend is asleep on a chair. Me and one other friend go out and smoke with the Jamaican teen until the dancer comes out about 30 minutes later and they leave. I head home and hear about how the next day my friend woke up and tried to go to sleep on his bed and found the Shady guy fucking the dancer on his bed. But he was too drunk to do much and fell asleep on the chair again. Good times all around. Not the party but the wedding reception. Fraternity brother couldn't afford hard liquor for his wedding, so he only had beer. Me and 5 other brothers who were invited spent about $600 on liquor at Costco. Every last drop was gone and everyone got drunk. No kids allowed. We only have a video to remember it, but I only remember waking up with a bridesmaid in a garage totally naked. Someone was in a boat totally naked. The bride and groom, super outdoorsy people, pitches a tent and tried to camp. One of the groom's men wandered out of the forest at noon naked and confused and still drunk. I have some regrets. That night is most of them. Edit. Spelling. Edit. I should mention there was one bottle we didn't drink. The bride's very drunk grandma took our bottle of tequila and said we couldn't drink it because tequila is when the clothes come off. As you can tell, clothes still came off. I've been on a lot of great bachelor parties with a lot of crazy and great dudes. But the thing that always gets to me is seeing some of my good friends just blatantly cheat on their wives. Most don't do it, but a couple of them are shameless about it. They're close friends, so I am also friends with their wives, and the biggest darkest secrets I walk around with every day are theirs. Wow, mine is real tame in comparison, but it was really WTF for doe-eyed baby 20 years old me. A bachelorette party planned by the sisters of the groom that included games like pin the penis on the groom, where a life-size cutout of the groom was taped to the door and PPL had to design and cut out their own thoughts on what the groom's dick is like and then play the normal pin the tail on the donkey. One sister of the groom was so drunk and disturbed by seeing this in reality that she started to bawl. Pre-deployment party for a friend of a friend heading to Afghanistan. Daytime affair in Wrigleyville, so we figured it'd be a bunch of guys watching a Cubs playoff game and rolled up around 330 to say hi. Walked into the bar and we're escorted into a private room upstairs where we immediately see 2 strippers, naked from the waist down, sharing an enormous double-ended dildo. A third was crawling around on her hands and knees, casually working a vibrator in and out of her asshole. Strangely, around half of the guys were in fact watching the Cubs game. Cubs clinched the division that day. My friend's party, his brother hired male strippers as a joke. His wife knew and fully laughed in support of the idea. He didn't want strippers anyway, so perfect if not unoriginal prank. The first male stripper was laughing and having a beer and playing pool with the guys. Both men still clothed after the initial joke of them arriving. We basically let them join the party for their time, however the other of them was stealing wallets and cash. His mistake was when he tried to take mine. Dude was good pickpocket. Even I barely noticed, which is impressive. But I'm extremely overprotective of my person and my chronic paranoia makes me jumpy, especially about being touched and people being behind me. His failed attempt at taking mine led us to find the rest of the money and 2 other wallets stuffed in his coat pocket. The guy playing pool called their boss right away while we kept the first and wait for the police. We went out to eat. Then we went to an arcade that was nearby. While there, the groom-to-be's future wife showed up with her bachelorette party. There was sake ball, claw machines, and so much more. Good times had by all sides. Side note, their wedding was outside. It rained. My wife farted loudly during it. Phew. I needed this after reading the last 20 nightmares. I kept waiting for the ski bowl too. Disclaimer. Wasn't there. Just saw the fallout. John and Lisa were getting married. John was a young cop who hung out with a lot of other young cops. They were planning quite the bachelor party for him 3 days before the wedding. Well, it was a wild time and a very drunk John decided to drive himself home and hit another car going 80 miles per hour. Well, let's just say he wasn't charged with drunk driving. Well, because. But, he needed about 70 stitches in his face, had 2 shiners and a broken nose. It looked great in the wedding photos. Strangely, they're still married almost 20 years later. But John is no longer a cop. Thank God. For many reasons. Edit. Since a number of you asked below. No. He was not charged because he was a cop. I do not know the particulars. He hit a parked car, so didn't injure another person. And somehow it was swept all under the rug. No. He faced no consequences at his job either. However, he ended up being booted off the force about 5 years later due, ultimately, to his uncontrolled alcoholism. Long story short, left the force, started a successful business, quit the booze and is living happily ever after. What's the responsible thing to do when the hotel security gives their final warning before kicking everybody out because the whole floor reeks of weed smoke? That's right. Go out and find some cocaine. Coke doesn't stink up the whole floor like weed does. Glad we worked that out. I was bartending. The bride spent 45 minutes trying to talk me into hooking up after my shift. Huge ass rock on her hand, too. Made me feel terrible. After reading this I have learned that drunk grooms and strippers equals awkward weddings. Also midgets can kick themselves. Not me, but my dad told me that at his own bachelor party, his father, so my granddad, threw up in the glove box in the car after a night of heavy drinking. Not only did it have to be cleaned out, but his dentures fell right into the mess, so those had to be searched for. Pretty disgusting. My buddy groom was not really a beer guy. We were pretty loaded before we hit the bar down the street in Louisiana. We went to the Bulldog, IDK, some bar that allowed dogs, so my friend brought his golden retriever. Anyways, we ended up getting a pitcher of Arrogant Bastard, which is a pretty rough beer even if you're into the heavier stuff, and he ended up laying his head down on the table after half a glass. After a while I noticed a slippery spot under the table, and it turns out the groom puked and the dog was eating it as my foot was resting in it. 10/10 still had fun. There were 2 strippers, but one was only there as her companion business partner. She was hired for an hour and even had a mixed CD. This was a while ago. That had songs that lasted and to be right around an hour. Someone also hired a midget who would charge $5 to kick himself in the forehead with both feet at the same time. Till this day the most random picture I remember being in was with someone from the party on their back biting a lollipop handle so the candy part was sticking out. Said stripper squatting over it about to make it disappear. A midget mid-head kicking himself. And myself just looking like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Edit. Who knew my shenanigans about a dozen years ago would blow up? I'm trying to contact someone that was there. I remember the picture had to be developed, so I know someone has the copy. I think Friendster was everyone's form of social media still. I do remember this being in SoCal and the little person being hired from www.rentamaget.com. I'll keep looking. Edit number 2. I reached out and I'm so sorry that I can't come up with that picture. Please understand it's not just you that's disappointed. I turned 32 this month and after responding to this post, I now realize the most epic picture I'll probably ever be in is lost. Like a fart in the wind. I have one person who hasn't responded that was there that might have the copy. If that's the case then I will definitely post it in the subreddit. Again, I'm so sorry. I'll keep looking. Stefan. New York's hottest club is Lake. This place has everything. Hour-long mixed CDs, midgets that kick themselves in the head for $5, stripper pops. Seth. Wait, what's a stripper pop? Stefan. You know, it's that thing where a stripper squats down on a lollipop that's sticking out of a dude's mouth. I hope I'm not too late to the party for this one. I created a throwaway to post this because it's actually about me. A few years back my then fiancé and I had a sort of combined Bachelor-Bachelorette party. The plan was that the two groups would go out and do their own thing, then meet back at my fiancé's parents' house to hang out and eventually sleep after. So we did, and everything was okay up until we got to the house. We were all very drunk but made it back safely. In the garage there was more beer. The groups met up. Everyone was having a good time. Here's where shit went wrong. I blacked out around the time we got there. During this time, someone or something set my drunken self off. I don't know what. When I unblacked out I was yelling and throwing beer bottles on the street in a pretty quiet neighborhood. I threatened my fiance's sister, tried to fight somebody, ripped off my shirt. In short, I had a mental breakdown. Fiance's father came out super pissed but luckily managed to get me back in the garage and talk to me. I should mention he's 6'4" and about 250, so I'd have lost that fight bad. Basically, here's why this happened. I was 23 and an alcoholic. We were in college and had been dating for 5 months when she got pregnant, and our son had been born about 7 months ago. I kinda knew she wasn't the one, and I wasn't ready to be a father, and I was broke and depressed. Up to this point I'd kept it together, but it all broke down after that. Not that it makes my actions okay, but that was the mindset. Rather than scale our plans back and reflect on what had happened, we went along with the wedding a couple months later. It actually went okay. We got divorced 2 years later, mostly in part due to me. Alcoholism, depression, anxiety and poor coping mechanisms for those things, anger issues, a couple borderline psychotic breaks, and a short stay in a mental ward. Obviously after that she kicked me out, and frankly I don't blame her. I'm doing somewhat better now. I see my kid a few times a week, but they'll likely never let me have him overnight. I'm on okay terms with my ex, as much as you can be anyway. Haven't had a drink in almost 3 years. I'm not sure I'd get married again. After all that, I don't even date much. I'm too afraid I'd treat somebody like that again. Clearly I don't trust myself. Anyway, there you have it. I was a real piece of shit. Friend told me he recognized the new girl at his work because she was the stripper that gave him head on his bachelor party. I was at my destination wedding in the Dominican Republic. A good buddy of mine rented a party bus to take us to what we all thought was a strip club. It was a strip club, but was also a whorehouse. An hour or so into it, my wife's friend's boyfriend takes off running out of the club and into the jungle outside of the club. The smoke machines and strobe lights set off his PTSD from being in combat in Afghanistan. We set out running after him and can't find him. A few minutes later he comes running out of the clearing with no shirt on. Only one shoe and cuts all over his face. We set him down and get him chilled out. We were all freaked the fuck out. Besides this guy, all this happened while a friend of mine was finger blasting a prostitute on stage in the middle of the club, while one was squatting nude about 3 inches from his face. I've only ever been to one real bachelor party. The day started with a round of golf, dinner at some sports bar, and finally the strip club where the special guest performer was some woman that at the time had, or previously had, some record for largest breasts. They looked like 2 kegs of beer protruding from her chest. So our whole group is sitting at the stage with our money out, and the groom sitting next to me was the first one she went to. She ended up burying his face between the kegs and we were all cheering and shit, until his face emerged with a look like he was about to vomit. I grabbed my money and noped the fuck away from the stage. He got up and rushed to the bathroom to wash his face off. Asked him what happened. He said he could only imagine it was akin to sticking your face between a fat guy's ass cheeks after he'd ran a marathon. He said he literally almost threw up on her, it was that gross. I went to a stag do where the hen do was the same night. They were childhood sweethearts who had never been with anyone else. The stag and hen said to each other that this would be their last nights of freedom and to act like they were single. I went to the stag do and he was as good as gold. We went shooting. Got drunk. He didn't even feel the strippers up. We got back to their place before the hens. When the hens came back with his blushing bride-to-be, she told him with a smile on her face that she had had sex with 9 different men. A group of bouncers in a nightclub had run a train on her. He just said he was happy she had had fun but didn't want to know about it. They have been married 10 plus years now. Edit. They are crazily happy and still in love. I am sure that this happened as when she got back all the other hens were commenting on what had happened and she offered to have sex with a few of us from the stag do, which we declined. He wasn't even angry, just tried to keep cutting her off from telling him exactly what happened as he just didn't want to know. They have an incredible life together and are extremely happy and I am friends with them both. We're friends with a couple a bit like this. He decided that since she was his only partner that he wanted to sleep with more women. She reluctantly agreed that they would officially be on a break for a bit. After a month when he had gotten no female attention whatsoever and she had slept with about 7 guys, he sheepishly decided he wanted to be back together again. I remember seeing something another Redditor said that most open relationships end up with the girl banging dozens of guys a month with the guy racking up 100s of hours in Dark Souls per month. I have read so many horror stories where guys open up their relationships thinking they will bang loads of girls and it just doesn't happen. Meanwhile their formerly reluctant girlfriend is getting a yard of cock a week for random guys. A yard of cock a week. Looks down. Damn, that is like 36 dicks a week. Yeah, I've never understood that attitude that it's okay to cheat on the Bachelorette party. If you're looking for an excuse to cheat, then you're probably not ready for marriage. Not sure I could maintain close relationships if I had friends that do that. Most of the time I've seen it with guys at the party that I didn't know all that well, like old college buds or whatnot. Definitely says a lot about someone who does that. It's weird. I'm having my bachelor party right now and my fiancée is having her bachelorette party. I should not have opened this thread. 2 Craigslist strippers came to the hotel room. One was not remotely attractive, and when the other one, who had potential, smiled, she revealed 2 missing front teeth. Combine that with her padded B-cup bra being removed to reveal an absolutely flat chest, and most of us ended up just playing poker while they did whatever they were getting paid to do. Edit. There you go, cock. I fixed it for you. Sister-in-law's bachelorette party, Vegas. Here are the highlights. Maid of honor sleeps with random cabana dude. Bride-to-be gets carted out of the day pool in a wheelchair. Bride-to-be sleeps through a strip show. Maid of honor finds CD strip club and everyone gets violated. Full story. Day pool drinking gets out of hand and everyone passes out at the hotel for a midday nap. I actually stayed behind that night because I had a margarita flu. Wake up at 4 AM to a knock. The maid of honor has returned and she is crying. She apparently met up with one of the dudes we met at the day pool and had sex. She tearfully called her boyfriend of 7 years and confessed everything right then. At 4 AM, we regroup for a new day. Day drinking gets the best of the bride. She is down for the count at 3 PM. Unable to walk, she is escorted out of the day pool and over to the taxi line. Bride girls insulted the cab driver the whole ride back, and barely manages to hold back vomit. Upon arrival at hotel, she takes a nap in a bush. Security is called. Again, the bride finds herself in a wheelchair. We are escorted through the hotel, through staff areas, up a service elevator, and into our room. She bathed 3x on the journey. Bride is unconscious. Nap time. We have pre-purchased tickets to Thunder Down Under and the conscious girls don't want to miss it, especially since it was paid for. We go to the show, leaving bride to rest and leaving maid of honor to tend to her, and also continue moping about the whole cheating on her boyfriend thing. Bride finally wakes up around 11 PM. Everyone else wants to gamble. She wants to go see some naked dudes. She missed the strip show earlier and it's her bachelorette party and she wants to go. Damn it. So most people go gamble. A few of us take the bride to a, non-classy strip joint. Place is sketchy as fuck. Dudes literally bend you over and slam into your ass then demand $25. Smells like regret and body oil. We leave the men's area and decide to chill with the naked chicks off the ladies' side. Strippers befriend us, get handsy, take things a bit too far, and we politely leave before we're part of an HPV orgy. Drive home in silence. Bonus. Bride has since gotten a divorce. Went to a friend's bachelor party at the Tilted Kilt. We got a private room and all the girls were being very nice to us and keeping our drinks full obviously. Noticed the bachelor on his phone a lot. So we try to get him to open up a bit but he says his soon-to-be wife is mad he's at the Tilted Kilt and thinks we are fucking the girls. He starts getting angry at us for trying to get him to get off his phone for a bit and just chill. One of the girls brings in a martini glass full of whipped cream with a cherry at the bottom. All she says is here, get the cherry out without using your hands, puts the glass in front of him and touches the back of his head to encourage him. He immediately yells get the fuck off me you bitch and storms out the room, gets in his car and drives home. The awkwardness in that room was palpable. Little bonus. They got married and divorced less than a year later because the wife cheated on him with someone she worked with. Talk about trust. Buddy was getting married to a girl he proposed to on 2 different occasions. After the first time he took the ring back because he wasn't sure she was right for him. He was the problem, not her. Bachelor party ensues. He gets a blowjob from a stripper. He tried to convince me to hook up with the other stripper. I had a girlfriend at the time. He get high drunk stoned, and the party ends. He convinces a bunch of friends, no family, as they had already given up on him making the right decisions, to all attend their wedding in the Caribbean. Enough people come that isn't his fiancee's trip is covered by the hotel travel agent. 4 months later, they have split up. He's with another girl roughly 8 years younger, and she's pregnant. present day. He's a father. He isn't with a baby mama. He's dating random Tinder girls that are almost half his age. 35 for him. 20 for them. And his ex-wife is happily married and has moved away. I got two. First one was a gay friend threw a bachelor party for our non-gay friend. Gay friend had a playlist for the night and everything. Stripper shows up, dances for 15 minutes. Then the next song was Smack My Bitch Up. She left soon after. We are all pretty harmless, but I get it. Second story was that we did a camping trip as a bachelor party. Hired a stripper to come out to the campground and do a show in the back of an RV. For being not in a major city and at a campground, the stripper was surprisingly awesome. A bunch of guys were doing coke off her titties. By the end of the night the stripper ended up doing coke off of my buddy's hairy man boob, in an RV with like 12 guys crammed in their fun stuff. You know the thread is bad when a little coke off stripper boobies in an RV at a campground seems real laid back and pleasant comparatively. The second story sounds so wholesome. Like one of the guys in a coke-fueled epiphany felt the need to offer her a line off of his tit. Like, no really, you deserve it. You've been amazing. It's only fair. Really. Went up to Iowa for a weekend away with the guys to spend golfing. Rented a cabin on the lake and everything was set on Friday. Woke up Saturday to 8 inches of snow. It was March. Edit. Wow. My top comment is about waking up to 8 inches of something. Just how I hoped. We couldn't get the This One's box to network properly for a Halo CE LAN. My husband's bachelor party was terrible. He was trying to get closer with my brother, so he invited him and another friend to go to the strip club. Nothing too big. Just a few guys hanging out. The friend cancelled. My brother, not even knowing the friend cancelled, called and said he invited a few people on his own. The night turned into basically my brother having an excuse to go to a strip club. His wife never let him. They all asked my husband to spot them some money, then use the money to buy him a lap dance. I guess he wasn't full into it as much as they wanted, so they kept calling him a pussy. Husband kept texting me telling me he's miserable and wants to leave. Tells my brother, who drove him there, and brother was like, yeah, just a minute, and continued to make out with the strippers and whatnot. Then when they finally left, my brother brings him home and pretty much bitched the whole time because my husband didn't let loose enough to be all over the strippers. I felt so bad, and I still do. We don't talk to my brother much anymore, for many reasons. Mostly because he's a narcissistic prick. Edit. I forgot to add, they bummed money off of him not just for the lap dance, but for everything that night. And my brother still to this day calls my husband a pussy and that he's not much of an alpha because I have him whipped. Apparently, having respect for your spouse and not screaming at her during family gatherings makes you a wimp. Oh, I have so many stories. I've been working at a nightclub for 10 years. I'm sure I'm late to this party, but my new favorite was the one who decided to get aggressive with our staff, so we told she wasn't welcome here anymore. As we tried to kick her out, she threw a complete toddler tantrum, falling to the floor, punching and screaming. She ended up punching her own maid of honor and other friends. And that's how we received 5 1-star Yelp reviews. HMN. I'm getting married in 2 hours from this post. Glad none of this happened during my bachelor's party lol. We hired a stripper for our buddy's bachelor party. She wasn't able to make it, so sent a colleague in her place at the last minute. This gaunt looking blonde thing in a skimpy outfit. We put some music on and she began her routine, which involved taking her clothes off with all the sensuality of undressing for a shower and stripping the groom naked too, which was uncomfortable for everyone, especially the groom. She laid him on his back, covered her pussy in shaving cream, then ground it against his face until he had a Santa Claus beard. She lit some candles and dripped hot wax all over this poor fucker's chest, then bent him over a chair and spanked his ass raw with a leather belt. It's worth noting that we had played paintball earlier that day and, keeping with tradition, had absolutely nailed him as much as possible and therefore left him a bit tender. We were horrified more than anything else, and she must have sensed it too, because she quickly got dressed and abruptly left despite still having 10 minutes left. All we wanted was a fun and sexy show, not to see our friend naked and humiliated in front of his closest mates. Groom-to-be had just had knee surgery. The stripper, buck naked, did a foot sweep on him after being told not to mess with his legs. About 15 minutes later, one of the guys did a foot sweep on her. Her cantaloupe bounced off the floor with a nice thunk sound, and while she stayed conscious, was pissed and probably had a low-level concussion. Took the vibrators out, got dressed and left. Was she doing karate kicks whilst being full of vibrators? Please say yes. We were chilling out at a bar, just dancing and drinking, when about half of the guys in the bachelor party just get soaked. We all turn around to find this guy in a standoff with two girls, one of whom had just thrown a drink at him. We're just standing there confused when the second girl, this tiny Asian thing, grabs a beer bottle off a nearby table and fastballs it at this guy. It was the best throw I've seen. She nailed him right in the head full strength from 20+ feet away in a crowded bar. His head split open and the two girls took off running. Eventually the bouncers came and were asking him and everyone which guys did this and if they were still here, and we got to explain it was this 5'0" Asian girl with a cannon of an arm. They seemed pretty amused and less angry after that. What happened to the guy? Was he okay? Also, what caused the standoff? The guy was bleeding pretty badly. We bounced very soon after and saw an ambulance on its way to the bar. So IDK. I have heard even shallow head wounds bleed badly though, and this guy was bald, so it was super obvious. I know this is going to get buried, but I'm still going to tell it. I was a server at a hoity-toity bar in a very expensive neighborhood. We almost never did bachelor parties, but we did have a private floor that was rented out for events. A guy calls and wants to throw his bachelor party there, which is fine. But then he calls back a few days before the party and asks about strippers. We say no strippers. He grumbles a bit but agrees. The night of the party arrives, and 3 women show up for the otherwise all-male bachelor party. We can tell they are definitely strippers and or escorts, but I guess management decided it wasn't worth fighting. And besides, we couldn't just bar the girls from a paying customer's party. They hadn't done anything wrong, and it would have been a scene. So, in go the girls. Staff is told to monitor the party, and enforce the no stripping rule. I'm upstairs, working on the rooftop patio when a co-worker lets me know there's been an accident. An ambulance has been called. There was a lot of blood. Apparently, the girls were definitely escorts. Buddy the groom, set to marry the next week, had been banging one of them in a bathroom stall. Someone got carried away and he'd smashed his face on the purse hook on the stall door, lower than the coat hook, and it had gone right through his cheek. I'm just curious what he told the poor bride. Well, the worst bachelor party I went to saw the high point of the night being a same of Monopoly, but I don't think that's what you're looking for here. My mother-in-law's friend was getting married for a second time. Her daughter threw her a party. The male stripper came and did his thing. One of the bride's much younger friends ended up giving the stripper a dance. Bra off under her shirt. They weren't small boobies either. Crouching on his lap, and visibly got him hard. Later they exchanged numbers. So one of the guys I play Magic with was having his bachelor party at a local game store and we were gonna get drunk and play. And I was invited, which shocked me considering I was a 21-year-old girl going to a bachelor party for my 38 or so year old friend who I played this game with. So at the party, one of the guys there who I didn't know, but asked me to go to a wedding with him through our Magic group chat. Being a girl who plays Magic is weird, kept pouring shots of Fireball into my angry orchards. The 8th of May 10 would recommend the drink. This got me fairly drunk very quickly. During this time, I had a guy pouring shots into my drinks kiss me and the groom was willing to pay me like $80 to show my tits because it's the last pair of real life titties he'd see besides his wife's. Several of the guys there who were sober got fairly upset with how I was treated and now we don't really play much with them. So I mean, that's something. TL. Dr. A young girl goes to her friend's bachelor party full of Magic players and stereotypes reign true. If you were the only girl then they wanted you to be the entertainment once they got you drunk enough. Sorry that happened to you. Sometimes you just wanna play some goddamn Magic SMH. The groomsman to be died. Not even joking. Worst night of my life. By far. I was just a part of a bachelorette party and honestly, the worst thing was just the people there. It was all my cousin's friends who live in a different town an hour away and me the outsider. It was a weekend full of gross gossip I didn't care for like OMG did you see Drew's new girlfriend? He's such a hot guy. Why'd he go for her and lots of high school was the best time of my life. I'd kill to go back. I took every opportunity I could to be alone. I'm going to be so happy when the wedding is over. I cannot stand being around shallowness like that. I'd kill anyone who tried to make me go back to high school. Edit. Thank you, anonymous benefactor, for the gold. Hearsay from a co-worker male bachelor party in AC which included picking up a prostitute in a limo. The men each got a turn one after the other but she required a condom. There was only one condom that was reused between friends. I can't corroborate the story but it has haunted me ever since I heard it. Didn't witness but am friends with wife of someone who attended. Went to Eastern Europe from UK and groom and best man were up for misbehaving for a last weekend of freedom. Got some hookers on Saturday evening. Sunday morning all the lads meet for breakfast. Groom not there. They assume he's enjoying last night's entertainment again. Finally they need to go to the airport and with the groom not answering, they get hotel management to open his door. The hooker has disappeared with the groom's wallet, phone etc. Groom is unconscious on the bed. Turns out he had a bad reaction to whatever drugs the hooker gave him and he died. The whole group got held back to be questioned by the police for a day or two so there was no way of hiding it sugarcoating the truth. So the bride has to be told that not only is she not getting married in 2 weeks, but that her fiancé is dead and he died while fucking a hooker. Walking to the bar by myself in college, I was trying to catch up with my friends when a giant sub screeches to a halt right next to me. The rear window falls down and a woman wearing a white veil and a sash asks me boxers or briefs. Boxers why? Bachelorette scavenger hunt, we need some boxers, come and get them. We ducked in between 2 buildings and the bride yanked off my pants, shoved her tongue down my throat, stole my underwear and disappeared into the night. This will probably get buried but whatever. My best friend's bachelorette. Her sister was maid of honor. It was a whole weekend shit show that I will try and summarize, because if I write out the whole story it'll be too long. The highlights. Bitch sister. Mom gave herself and her cousin who is the carbon copy twin of bitch sister the room upgrade at the hotel, leaving bride in the regular room. Bitch sister complained about 7 girls drinking 1 bottle of vodka together. Said we were trashy. Bitch, what? It's a bachelorette party. Bitch sister and bitch cousin stayed in their room all day decorating. Tried to convince us, the people with the bride, to leave the location of the party and buy them vodka at the club night planned. Bitch sister, bitch cousin, and another bridesmaid left the rest of the bachelorette party, bride included, after 20 minutes to go drink in their room. When they finally returned, they had all changed outfits. Bitch sister was wearing a tiara, the bridesmaid was wearing a white dress, all 3 of them polished off, you guessed it, 1 bottle of vodka, played a bachelorette party game. Sort of like a Have You Ever, but with cards, where bitch cousin kept calling things tacky, including sexting. But when a card came up about sleeping with your friend's boyfriend, she said only if you want to make her mad. Bitch cousin did bitch sister's hair all nicely, took about 40 minutes. Half-assed the bride's BC of time limits. Went out to dinner. Bitch sister and bitch cousin talked to bride like she was a child. Told her what to order. It was horrible. We ended up doing a mini bachelorette without those chicks and had pizza and beer. Edit. Some spelling. Everyone did coke. The next morning they couldn't wake up the groom or his dad. Turns out they both had heart conditions that did not mix well with coke, and my co-worker ended up burying her fiancé and his dad the day they were supposed to get married. She was pregnant at the time. Unexpectedly walked into a bachelor party for someone I didn't know. Had to be 200 people there. Not to bring race into it, but me and my buddy were the 2 token white guys at this Hispanic hoedown. The party is at an old theater. The guy getting married is unconscious, tied to a chair and half undressed on the stage. At no point during the time I was there did I see any movement from him. There were 2 strippers completely naked. They poured Jose down their bodies, letting the line of guys suck it off them one after another. Then came the lightsabers. More than anything I remember the small Asian guy wearing sunglasses in the dark ass club. He was standing by 3 hefty bags full of cash. It was as humbling as it was insane. Assuming I ever get married, my own bachelor party will never live up to the half hour I spent at someone else's. Buddy of mine had a Star Wars themed bachelor party and someone hired a stripper and gave her a New Hope Princess Leia costume, the white one where she hides the info in R2 and the hair buns. Stripper shows up wasted with the hair buns crooked costume half on slurring Lua K where's my big boy hooky wang fenicky am I gonna suck his dick. Not a bachelorette party, but a rehearsal dinner. My sister was getting married, and I was in the wedding. The drive to the dinner, and the wedding was a good 90-minute drive. My ex-fiancé decides, hey, I'm going to put some rum into this flask for the ride. I get that, you know. Calm your nerves. Take off that anxiety of being around people you don't know. Other than my direct family, which is not big. Well, we got lost. Of course in 2014. We were in an area of eastern Indiana where cell phone reception sucked. Couldn't get a hold of anyone, and basically had to find the place the old-fashioned way by asking several gas station associates for directions. It took us about 3 hours to find this place, and by that time, and my ex was fucking hammered. So, now we've arrived, and not only did I miss the rehearsal of my sister's wedding, not only have I pissed off my family, but I have this significant other who is just real shit-faced. Fuck me, right? We get to a table, because she was stumbling, wobbling, ya know the walk of one who's drunk. She sits down, and my parents approach us. My parents are Mormon, mind you, because, of course they are. They immediately took note that the ex was drunk, which made them even more pissed off. What my ex did next is why I am sharing this. I am standing talking to my parents trying to explain everything, and I guess the ex got real horny, as I am standing, talking to my mom and mother, and father. She starts grabbing for my cock, like blatantly reaching for it. My parents' jaws dropped, as they watched this fucking belligerent drunk asshole, who would soon be their next daughter-in-law, trying to fondle their son. They quickly leave us. Imagine that. So we left right after that. Of course, as I am guiding her towards the car, she started screaming. She started cussing. And for 90 fucking minutes I drove with this doucher bag, crying, calling me every name in the book, and telling me she wanted to walk home. Why I didn't call it off that night might be one of the biggest regrets of my life, and I don't have many regrets. That so far has been the worst, most embarrassing moment I've ever been in, or around in any capacity dealing with weddings. The hired stripper showed up at the best man's house, but instead of a dude security guard to keep her safe, she brought her little sister who was just learning to strip herself. So, it was two little petite girls in a house full of about 20 drunk, horned up dudes. The little sister got talked into giving a guy a blowjob, then it was basically on. It was honestly the guy's limitations, moral self-control that kept it from just turning into a gangbang. The girls got drunk and were willing to do anything. Guys were tipping the girls to do various things, and the girls kept throwing the cash into a pile in the middle of the living room. Then, a couple guys started grabbing some of that cash to pay the girls to do more outrageous shit. I left just as one of the girls was being inverted, held by her legs, like a letter Y, and they were stuffing carrot sticks into her vagina. Yeah, that's where I drew the line. I heard more stories the next day, but hearsay doesn't hold up in court. Reading these stories is why I'm eventually going to elope with my GF. Also, I have no close friends to call groomsmen. She's pretty antisocial too, so it works out. Mine is pretty mild. My buddy was getting married, some of us were not 21 yet, so he does paintball and pizza. I watched a guy catch 3 markers to his bait and tackle. Was not a good day for him. I was tending bar at a bachelor party. Stripper was also a prostitute. After her performance she was blowing fucking the groom. Guy at the bar was not really into the whole event, so was at the bar talking to me, with a wry look on his face, watching the groom get blown and fucked by the entertainment. He tells me his is the bride's brother. Good times. Currently on my sister-to-be's bachelorette party while reading this. I'm very happy that the most exciting thing we're doing is golfing. I am a few hours late, so it is unlikely that someone will read this, so I'll make it short. Bride had sex with the stripper. Anal sex. She had an anal fissure. English is not my native language, and the wedding was called off. Good times. Party was for my paraplegic friend. Stripper got pissed he couldn't get it up for her. The wheelchair should have been a dead giveaway. Decides to get raunchier and raunchier. I stepped outside once the dildo started coming out and she started asking for volunteers. Was at a private house, so just excused myself for a smoke. About 2 minutes later another dude stepped out, looking a bit shell-shocked. We talked about our weddings and kids and called it a night, leaving by the side gate. Can't really blame the stripper, but guys, trying to act 22 when you're pushing 40 is just downright embarrassing. I went on my first stag do this year. It was an experience. So the first night, the groom pays £500 on his girlfriend's credit card on a prostitute, which he told his fiancée was a bar bill. On the last night his dad threatened to tell his fiancée, so he hospitalized his own dad in a fight, then goes out that night, Goes back to bachelorette party's hotel and sleeps with 3 of them, so 4 nights he slept with 4 different women. The wedding was last weekend and all went well. Side note, all of the Fee and K's brothers were on the stag weekend and nobody told her. Not American, so can anyone explain to me why are Americans, guys and girls, so obsessed with strippers and potentially ruining your marriage right before getting married? Posted this a few years ago. Enjoy. Bouncing at a busy hipster club one weekend. I'm doing wristbands at the door when this bachelorette party comes stumbling to the door. It's about 11 at night and these girls are already pretty trashed. The bachelorette had one of those stupid sashes and her 3 friends were dressed to impress. I let them in. Nothing crazy. Fast forward 30 minutes later and I rotate with another bouncer and stand guard at the sidebar, which is also where the green room was. It wasn't a VIP type thing. People just went in there to do drugs with the club owner and his cousin. We can call them Chris and Steve, who were there every single night preying on girls. These guys were in their late 30s and this club was mostly 18, 25, so while I thought it was creepy, they never left alone, so the girls didn't seem to think so. I see the bachelorette party girls doing shots at this sidebar. Chris is giving them free shots and making small talk. I had seen him in action many times, so I knew he was just trying to hook up with someone. They convinced the bachelorette to let Chris, Steve, and one of the bartenders, we can call him Joe, do body shots off her while she laid on the bar with her friends cheering her on. Then her and 2 of her friends started doing shots off each other and everyone got really drunk. I was bored and making small talk with one of her friends who was supposed to be Dee but was in no position to be driving. During the next few minutes Steve convinces the bachelorette to come into the green room to, I assume, do coke while her other 2 friends are talking to some guys. I see Steve and Chris and bachelorette go in. Like 30 seconds later Chris comes running out and gets Joe, who goes in. I get her friend's phone number and break off my conversation and make my way to the door while the girl I was talking to met up with the other 2 friends who all, I guess, assumed the bachelorette was in the bathroom. Right before I get to the door Joe busts out and says, "You gotta get in on this." I walk in and this girl is on the couch on all 4s with her dress hiked up saying the dirtiest shit, getting railed by Chris while giving an incredibly sloppy blowjob to Steve in between her saying "fuck me harder." Joe runs over and whips his junk out and she starts going to town on him to saying shit like "give me that cock. This is my last night." Then she flips onto her back and everyone switches around. No one is wearing protection, mind you. The contents of her purse are all over the couch and floor. Then another bouncer, we can call him Mike, comes in looking for me so we can rotate spots and stops in his tracks to stare at the bachelorette gangbang going on. Without saying a word he runs over and drops his pants to his ankles. Just as she is about to start blowing him she throws up all over his junk and fills his bunched up pants and boxers with what seemed like a gallon of throw up. He tried to step back but being immobilized by his pants he fell back and put a hole in the drywall behind him. Joe, who was now the last of him, Chris and Steve to rail her, sees this happen in front of him and can't hold down whatever he ate before his shift because he blows chunks all over her tits, which were hanging out of her dress as well as all over her dress and bachelorette sash. He makes this awkward sigh of relief without messing up his rhythm. I don't know if he actually finished, but he kept going for at least another 10 seconds while I don't think she even realized he blew chunks on her because she was still leaned over the side of the couch still heaving and there was music playing kinda loud. Chris is yelling at Mike for putting a hole in the wall. Steve is rolling on the floor laughing. Me being the only sober one in the room, I tell Steve to put all her shit back in her purse. I led her to one of the 2 bathrooms in the green room. Mike had now made his way to the other one. I tell Chris to go get her friends and tell her she threw up and was in the bathroom. Joe fortunately didn't get any puke on himself, so he just went back to the bar like nothing happened. Her friends come to her rescue and clean her up, and they all promptly leave like nothing happened. Now here's the really fucked up part. About 3 weeks later, the girl's friend that give me her number, I had lost it, walks up and I'm working the door. I somehow remembered her name and asked her how her friend's wedding went. She looked kid off puzzled, and I told her they were here a few weeks ago for her bachelorette party and we talked. Her eyes got really big and she started telling me the bachelorette had accidentally pocket dialed her fiancé while she was getting railed on the couch and left a voicemail of it, and she claimed to have no memory of any of it, but they had lost track of her a few times and weren't sure where or what exactly happened. I played dumb and said that sucks, and then told everyone involved, who all seemed to think it was more funny than anything. I quit working there shortly after that because that shit is depressing and it was always something every night. Buddy hired stripper for his best friend's bachelor party. Stripper came down with the flu but didn't want to have to refund the money. She was crying that she had already spent it and couldn't afford to do without it. I offered to pay for another stripper, but my friend decided he was going to let her do her job anyways, despite the fact that she had run off to the trash can to puke up a lung twice during the conversation. I said, dude, it's no problem really, getting someone else will be much better. But he decided he was going to get his money's worth. So, first dance they pull out the groom and strap him in a chair, tied his ass down. Then the emaciated, nauseated stripper saunters over to him and starts a very uncoordinated coughing dance. The groom doesn't even notice. Then, right when there's a pause in the music, we hear a fart. A greasy fart. And the best man lets out a scream and runs top speed to stop the stripper from grinding on the groom. Reverse cowgirl, because from his spot he saw that she had actually squirt shit all over the groom, who still hasn't noticed. Seriously. Then the rest of us noticed, mostly because of the smell and the fine spray of diarrhea painting the groom's pants. That's time he notices and freaks completely out. So the best man reaches the groom pops up still strapped to the chair, bangs the best man in the head, and they both take a tumble into the stripper, who has now started to reel or let loose from both ends, and they land in a pool of shit and vomit and blood. About a third of the guests puke. I laughed my ass off and saved my I told you man till after the party. Oh, and she still asked for a tip, hahaha. TLDR. It's a bit of putting watching a co-worker eat out a stripper. My boss had a bachelor party when I was in my early 20s. I was one of the younger people there, having recently graduated from college. The party was held at one of his friend's house and consisted of drinking and 2 strippers. The strippers were an interesting pair. One more mature with enormous breasts, the other young and live. So, picture your average ranch-style house in your average neighborhood. A bit run down, shitty carpet and just your standard living room. All us guys were around the perimeter of the room with whatever we could find to sit on, and the strippers making their individual ways around the circle to each patron doing a little striptease. Nothing too crazy at this point. The older one came around to me and I got a bit of a surprise, starfish staring at me when she bent over. But that's still not the worst thing. They did a set, went into the restroom for a break, came back out for the lap dance and made a second round of the room nude. Pretty banging bodies, and I admit I was a little miffed that the younger one never came around to me, and just a reasonable time. Then the younger one reached one of my co-workers who was on the couch. He was a pretty normal dude, lower 30s, kind of smarmy but nothing too weird. Balding, slight, just a harmless looking dude. She started grinding on him and he was into it. He soon got to where he had a handful of the sheets in both hands and was just chowing down on the stripper's mound. I was just so astonished. I had no idea what to even do. She wasn't beating on him, but I don't think that's what she had in mind. My other co-workers, including bosses, were hooting and hollering as this otherwise milquetoast, forgettable dude just absolutely gobbled this poor girl's crotch. It was just so inappropriate and public, the kind of thing that these days would lead to likely firing and charges. Surprising amount of people in here hire strippers for their bachelorette parties. Doesn't anyone else find that extremely trashy to be doing the night before your wedding? Hate the idea of it. I'm a guy and not a prude, but to me it kinda undermines that I'm intending to marry someone who is attractive, let alone that it is trashy. Both my girlfriend and I have agreed no strippers and certainly no cheating. Last night of freedom was before we started dating seriously, not before any future wedding. At a bachelor party, a bunch of stripper prostitutes were hired. Not gonna lie, I partook in some of the activities. I was single and figured why not have some fun. I also saw a lot of married guys having full-on sex with the girls. Some of these guys were in what I thought were happy marriages. I thought maybe this bachelor party was just raucous and out of control, but talking to some of the guys, this kind of thing happened at every bachelor party within that group of guys. Some guy in a teddy bear costume randomly appeared and the wife to be starting sucking him off. Mega weird. Obviously I haven't seen it, but it was really big on a German app called Jodel where you can post anonymously. The bachelorette party went absolutely crazy with the stripper fucking the bride and a bridesmaid and sniffing cocaine from their butts. Someone posted the story on Jodel and of course it went viral. Sorry if I don't remember the details correctly. Buddy screwed a stripper and got an STD about a week before his wedding. He was able to cure the STD, but it made for a somewhat awkward honeymoon to say the least, in the Caribbean, the location of their destination wedding. He never told his wife. Fuck it. The worst thing isn't something I witnessed or even remember most of, but it is something I did. I was completely broke and wasn't working much, but it was one of my best friend's bachelor party in San Diego. I had like $78 to my name and it was like $30 minus $50 RT for the train. So I was running on financial fumes. However, everyone else at the bachelor party are anywhere from very well off to straight up rich. All the dudes there were buddies of mine too, who I came to know through him. He was probably one of my 2 or 3 best friends I'd say at this time in my life. We were a group of drinkers and partiers and hit it hard. He's a huge dude and we end up drinking together, and I usually keep up even with a 90-pound weight differential. Anyways, we arrive and get on a van and go to the hotel and then go to like a pool party thing, and I get a few drinks here. The important thing to note here is my buddy and them know I'm broke as fuck, and my buddy picks up the tab and I hook him up with hockey tickets and stuff, so we sorta take care of each other. I hadn't eaten since the day before and I didn't really track how much I was drinking. I'll be straight up. I used to drink a lot and get into a lot of shit, and this was my ride or die drinking buddy's bachelor party. I also take prescription medications, which sometimes has a synergistic effect. For your information, don't drink on warfarin, not even a sip, with alcohol, so I really shouldn't have been drinking anything. Anyways, we all drink at the pool and the bill comes and they look at me for a few bones and I'm straight up that I'm low. One of the guys I guess told me not to worry about paying for the drink earlier, but I think he meant like don't worry about the single drink. Anyways, it wasn't any real issue. I said I'd throw some herb to everyone to make it up. All is well. but I'm more drunk than I realize and had way more drinks than I knew because the waitresses kept picking up and bringing back drinks and people would buy us all a shot and so forth and so on. Keep in mind my buddy and I would hang and drink a whole handle of Fireball while watching hockey and hanging out. Anyways, we go back to the hotel and are drinking beers in the van and get back and quickly change to go out for the night. I think I'm fine when actually I'm pretty fucking drunk. We arrive at a fancy restaurant and our table isn't ready, so of course it's off to the bar for drinks. Now before I go on, there is one thing to note. There was one guy in the group that I didn't like and would be the type of guy that smashed and walks around harassing chicks and dudes and trying to drive, and he's just kinda a dick. He's also rich and has a rich family and is just a prick. So we get seated and it went blank there for a bit. Next thing I remember is me being led into a pudding wagon while asking what did I do. They take me to like a strip mall which had like a huge room that I guess was a drunk tank. This was not my first drunk tank rodeo, so I know the drill and take my shoes off so I have a pillow and go to bed. I wake up and hit a snag. I'm running out of money and still need to buy a train ticket home, and I remember the name of the hotel. But there are multiple hotels of the name in the area. I get an Uber and go to the first hotel. Nope. Look at my PayPal. Shit. That's shrinking like a Costanza dick in a swimming pool. Call another one. Wrong hotel again, but luckily I realize it before getting out, so I have him drive me to the next on the list. Third time's a charm. I walk in and see my buddy at the desk and look over at him and laugh, and he's checking out and looks at me strange. I think that's weird, but whatever. I must have been a bit of a dick to him the night before while drunk. So I go to the room. My stuff isn't in there. I find it in another room, and I guess everyone was leaving on different trains or whatnot and I can't get a hold of anyone. So I grab my bag and get to the train station, and I have just enough money left to within like a nickel for the train ride home. I'm still shaking off a hangover and figure everyone else must have gotten wasted and went home since they all have families and kids and stuff. I get home and text my buddy and get no response. Call him and no response. I'm like, this is weird, and I figure I must have done something stupid while I was drunk that I have to apologize for. Which is basically par for the course at this point on both our ends. 2 days later I'm at the dog park and he calls me. We start talking and I ask him what's going on and what happened, because I just remember sitting down at the table and then suddenly being arrested. Detained if you want to get technical. So here is what transpired. We sit down to eat and the waiter takes our order, and at some point his buddy, the dude I don't like, made a snide comment about the money and the drinks at the pool and about money. I was basically planning on just eating bread and saying I wasn't feeling great at the restaurant to avoid any money issues like with the pool in general, and I snapped. I flipped the table over and leapt after him and basically hulked out and took out half the patio area of one of the fanciest restaurants in the city. And at one point I guess there was a dad there with his kid and I scared the kid indirectly, which still destroys me inside. Anyways, he just had a kid and had another on the way, and seeing me act that way while blitzed and everything sorta broke the camel's back, and we haven't spoken since he called me in the park to tell me the story of what I did, and I don't blame him. After that happened at the restaurant, it basically killed the night apparently, and thus ended the bachelor party early. We were all supposed to go to a club and stuff after, but instead everyone went back to their rooms and went to bed and went home. We haven't spoken in about 2 years now, I think. My dad died last year and I heard from a couple people in the group with condolences, but not him. Which hurt, but also is my fault and understandable. And even though I almost never drink now and no longer go to bars and don't do all that stupid shit I used to do, I made Kiefer Sutherland look good. We still don't talk and it hurts, but I have no one to blame but myself. And though I feel awful every day still about ruining his bachelor party, part of me thinks maybe on some level it was a good thing. It forced me to finally stop drinking and going out and getting into trouble. I think it made him cut back, and seeing me like that, I'm sure he saw something in himself when he used to get like that. Not a day goes by that I don't think about it and how I lost one of my best friends who was always good to me, who was one of the few to visit me in the hospital when I was sick, all because of being stupid with booze. And I think back at all the other relationships I ruined and things I fucked up from alcohol, and though I wish none of it happened, I guess I needed to lose one of my best friends in order to save myself and whatever other people I may put in danger with my alcohol abuse. I put all my focus and reallocated all the time I would spend partying and drinking and going out into rescuing dogs, and have had over 15 dogs in and out of my condo, rescued from the streets or shitty owners, or pulled from the pound and rehabilitated and trained and placed into loving homes. And now I graduated to helping people. I spent 4.5 hours yesterday at a methadone clinic so a homeless guy I befriended could get his treatment. That's something I never would have done before this, because I would have been sleeping until 2 p.m. because I got home drunk when the sun came up. Though I hate myself for what I did, and I miss my friend Sualu much. If that's the price I had to pay to turn my life around, so be it. Miss you, Lee. I'm sorry. We all came here for stories about the bride-to-be cheating and the groom never finding out. Disappointed in the lack of them.